I pushed open the door to the maternity ward with a sense of anticipation, only to have it crushed under the weight of the scene before me. There, in a room filled with the soft coos of a newborn, was Emily, my childhood friend, and Jack, the man I called my husband. Between them lay the undeniable truth, a baby, their baby. "Anna, you're here." Emily's voice was falsely cheerful. "Meet Ethan, our little miracle." The words hit me like a physical blow, yet I managed to find a smile. "He's beautiful, Emily. Congratulations." Jack stood there, a picture of conflict. "Anna, I can explain," he stammered. I held up my hand, stopping him mid-sentence. "No need, Jack. I think the situation speaks for itself." Emily's eyes gleamed with a mix of victory and spite. "We didn't plan this, Anna. These things just happen." The coldness in my chest spread as I looked at them, my life unraveling in front of my eyes. "Yes, things just happen," I echoed hollowly. Jack's eyes begged for understanding. "Anna, please, let's talk about this." I shook my head, the reality setting in. "There's nothing to discuss, Jack. You've made your choice." Emily butted in, her voice sharp. "It's not like you were starting a family anyway. What with your career and all." I felt a surge of anger, but quickly masked it with a calm exterior. "My career has nothing to do with this betrayal, Emily. You know that." Jack tried to reach out, his face etched with regret. "Anna, I'm sorry. I never wanted to hurt you." I stepped back, avoiding his touch. "But you did, Jack. You both did." Turning to leave, I could feel their eyes on my back, heavy with unspoken words and guilt. As I walked out, Emily's voice, laced with fake concern, followed me. "Take care, Anna. We really are sorry." Outside, the hospital's pristine halls felt suffocating. I pulled out my phone with trembling hands and dialed a familiar number. "It's me." It happened. The baby, it's Jack's. My voice was steady, belying the chaos within. "I need your help. We need to meet immediately." The call ended, and I was left staring at the sterile walls, my mind racing. This was not just a betrayal, it was a declaration of war, and I was not going to retreat. A week later, I sat across from my old friend, Lisa, at a quiet cafe downtown. Lisa had been my confidant since college, the one person who knew me inside out. "Anna, how are you holding up?" Lisa's concern was evident in her eyes. I took a deep breath, steadying my voice. "I'm managing. It still feels unreal, you know?" Lisa reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "I can only imagine. But why did you want to meet? Is there something you're planning?" A flash of determination crossed my face. "I can't let them get away with this, Lisa. I need to do something." Lisa leaned in, her expression serious. "What are you thinking, Anna?" I hesitated for a moment before speaking. "I want to expose them, make them feel the pain they've caused me." Lisa nodded, understanding my need for retribution. "Do you have a plan?" I outlined my idea, watching as Lisa listened intently. "First, I need to gather evidence. Texts, emails, anything that proves their affair." "Smart move," Lisa commented. "But how will you get this evidence?" "I have access to Jack's laptop. He's careless with passwords, and I know Emily's routine. It won't be difficult to catch her off guard." Lisa's eyes narrowed in thought. "And after you get this evidence?" I felt a cold resolve settle within me. "I'm going to expose them publicly. At the Smith family reunion next month, Jack's entire family will be there." Lisa's eyes widened. "That's bold, Anna. But what about the repercussions?" I met her gaze squarely. "I've thought about it. I'm ready for whatever comes next. They need to pay for their betrayal." Lisa sighed, offering a supportive smile. "I'm with you, Anna. Whatever you need, I'm here." I felt a surge of gratitude for Lisa's unwavering support. "Thank you, Lisa. I'll need your help to pull this off." We spent the next hour strategizing, plotting each step with meticulous care. As I left the cafe, a sense of purpose filled me. Jack and Emily had shattered my world, but I was going to rebuild it on my terms. They would soon learn the cost of their deceit. The evening was chilly as I parked outside Jack's office building, waiting. Tonight was crucial. I needed to access his laptop to find undeniable proof of his betrayal with Emily. As Jack's car finally pulled out of the parking lot, I slipped inside, using the spare key he didn't know I had. My heart pounded as I made my way to his home office, a room once filled with shared dreams and now just a symbol of his deceit. I booted up his laptop, my fingers flying over the keys. Emails, messages, photos, the evidence of their affair unfolded before me. My heart ached, but I pushed the pain aside. This was about justice now. "Anna, what are you doing here?" I spun around, startled. Jack stood in the doorway, his face a mix of surprise and guilt. "I could ask you the same, Jack, working late or just avoiding coming home." My voice was steady, but my insides churned with anger. Jack sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I'm sorry, Anna. I know I've hurt you." I scoffed, turning back to the laptop. "Sorry doesn't even begin to cover it, Jack. I trusted you." Jack moved closer, his voice softening. "Anna, let's talk. We can fix this." I spun around, anger flaring. "Fix this? How, Jack? By pretending you didn't betray me with my best friend?" Jack flinched at my words, but his expression hardened. "It wasn't planned, Anna. It just happened." I laughed bitterly. "It just happened. That's your excuse? You destroyed our marriage, Jack." Jack's gaze dropped. "I know I made a mistake, but I still love you, Anna." I shook my head in disbelief. "Love? Is that what you call this? Sneaking around lying to my face?" Jack reached out, but I stepped back. "Don't, Jack. We're beyond that now." My eyes returned to the laptop screen, the evidence glaring back at me. "I have what I need now. Proof of your little affair." Jack's eyes widened in panic. "Anna, please, think about what you're doing." I met his gaze, my resolve unwavering. "I have thought about it, Jack, and I'm just getting started." Leaving Jack standing there, I walked out with the evidence I needed. It was time for them to face the consequences of their actions. The day of the Smith family reunion arrived, a perfect stage for the unveiling of Jack and Emily's deceit. I had meticulously planned every detail, the evidence securely tucked away in my purse. As I entered the grand hall, adorned with family portraits and laughter, I felt a surge of adrenaline. This was it, the moment of truth. Jack spotted me first, his eyes widening in surprise and worry. "Anna, you came. I wasn't sure you'd—" I cut him off with a cold smile. "Miss this? Not for the world, Jack." Emily, seeing me, hesitated before approaching with a forced smile. "Anna, it's good to see you." I nodded curtly, my gaze scanning the room. "Quite the gathering, isn't it?" As dinner commenced, I felt the eyes of Jack's family on me, their whispers barely concealed. I bided my time, waiting for the perfect moment. Finally, as the toasts began, I stood, my heart pounding in my chest. "May I have your attention, please?" The room fell silent, all eyes on me. Jack's face drained of color, a silent plea in his eyes. But it was too late for pleas. "I have something to share," I began, my voice steady. "About Jack and Emily." A collective gasp filled the room as I pulled out the photos and messages, displaying them for all to see. The evidence of their affair, undeniable and raw. The reactions were immediate and varied: shock, anger, disappointment. Jack's mother looked like she might faint, while his father's face reddened in fury. Emily tried to interrupt, her voice shrill. "Anna, please, this isn't what it looks like." I turned to her, my gaze cold. "Isn't it? It looks like betrayal to me. It looks like my husband and my best friend stabbing me in the back." Jack finally found his voice, his tone desperate. "Anna, I'm so sorry. Please, let's talk about this." I shook my head, my resolve firm. "There's nothing left to say, Jack. You've made your bed, and now you can lie in it." The room erupted into chaos, family members voicing their outrage and disappointment. Jack's father approached me, his expression one of deep regret. "Anna, we had no idea. I'm so sorry you had to go through this." I nodded, feeling a strange sense of relief amidst the turmoil. "Thank you, Mr. Smith. I just thought you all deserved to know the truth." As I left the room, the weight of the past month seemed to lift off my shoulders. I had done it, exposed their lies, their betrayal. The path ahead would be challenging, but for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of hope. In the weeks following the family reunion, the fallout from my revelation was more devastating than I had anticipated. Jack's family, once a pillar of support and pride, had shunned him, and Emily was now a pariah, her true character exposed. I sat across from Lisa at the same cafe where we had plotted our strategy, watching the ripple effects unfold. "They're getting what they deserve," I said, a bitter taste in my mouth. Lisa sipped her coffee, her eyes reflecting the gravity of the situation. "How are you holding up, though? This must be hard on you, too." I shrugged, my emotions a complex web. "It's a relief, honestly, but it's also empty. I wanted justice, and I got it, but at what cost?" Lisa reached over, her touch reassuring. "You stood up for yourself, Anna. Don't ever regret that." News of the scandal had spread like wildfire. Jack had been suspended from his job pending an investigation, and Emily's social circles had turned their backs on her. Their affair, once hidden in shadows, was now in the harsh light of public scrutiny. I learned from mutual friends that Emily had tried to reach out to me, but I had no interest in her apologies. She had made her choice, and now she was living with the consequences. Jack, on the other hand, had become a shell of the man I once knew. He called me repeatedly, leaving voicemails filled with apologies and pleas for forgiveness, but I couldn't find it in me to feel sympathy for him. He had broken the vows we made, the trust we built. One evening I received a call from Jack's mother. Her voice was weary, filled with sadness. "Anna, I just wanted to apologize on behalf of our family. We never knew about Jack's indiscretions. You didn't deserve any of this." Her words were kind, but they did little to soothe the pain. "Thank you, Mrs. Smith. I appreciate your call." As the call ended, I looked out the window, watching the world go by. The streets were busy with life, people moving on, unaffected by the turmoil in my world. I realized then that it was time for me to move on, too. I had gotten my revenge, exposed the lies and deceit, but holding on to the anger and bitterness would only poison me further. I made a decision that day. It was time to close this chapter of my life and start anew. Jack and Emily had chosen their paths, and now I was choosing mine, a path towards healing and hopefully happiness. Several months had passed since I had laid bare the truth about Jack and Emily. The once tumultuous storm of emotions had settled into a calm acceptance. I found myself in a new phase of life, one marked by self-discovery and rebuilding. Lisa and I met again at our usual cafe, a place that had witnessed the unfolding of my revenge, and now my renewal. "You seem different, Anna. Lighter, somehow," Lisa observed, her eyes searching mine. I smiled, feeling a sense of peace I hadn't known in a long time. "I am different, Lisa. The whole ordeal with Jack and Emily, it forced me to reevaluate everything. I've let go of the anger. It was consuming me." Lisa smiled back, visibly relieved. "I'm so glad to hear that. Holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die." I nodded in agreement. "And I've got news. I've decided to start a new chapter in my life." Lisa leaned in, her curiosity piqued. "Do tell." "I'm moving," I announced. "A new city, a new job, a fresh start." Lisa's smile broadened. "That's wonderful, Anna. You deserve all the happiness in the world." I sipped my coffee, feeling a sense of excitement for the future. "Thank you, Lisa. I'm looking forward to it." "Oh, and there's something else." "What is it?" Lisa asked, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. I hesitated for a moment, the words feeling surreal even to me. "I've met someone. His name is Michael. He's different, kind, understanding. We've been seeing each other for a few weeks now." Lisa's excitement was palpable. "Anna, that's amazing. Tell me everything about him." As I shared details about Michael, I realized how far I had come from the broken woman I was months ago. The pain inflicted by Jack and Emily's betrayal would always be a part of my story, but it no longer defined me. I had taken control of my narrative, turning a painful ending into a hopeful beginning. The sun set outside the cafe, casting a warm glow over the bustling city. Life moved on, relentless and beautiful in its persistence, and so did I, stepping into a future filled with possibilities and the promise of new beginnings.
Do you know about a sickness called facial arteriovenous malformation? I was born with it. It made a big bump grow in the middle of my face. This sickness is something you're born with. It happens when your arteries and veins, which usually do different jobs, get connected. This lets blood flow between them, making a big blood clot. I had to have lots of surgeries when I was young, but each surgery made my face look even more strange. When I was in school, especially in elementary school, the boys in my class teased me a lot. Because of this problem with my face, I felt really bad about myself. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't hide it. I thought I would never find love or get married. I thought no one could love someone who looked as ugly as me. At least that's what I thought until I met him. Sophia, used to be very negative and lacked confidence, and others could see that about me. While what people said about my illness affected me a bit, it was mainly my family, especially my sister, who made me feel worse. You see, my sister Mia is really beautiful. She has pretty eyes with double eyelids, long eyelashes, and a perfect nose. People often say how lovely she looks. My parents were really proud of her, and they often bought her new clothes, shoes, and hair accessories. But when it came to me, my illness made me look different, and they acted like I didn't matter. They'd say things like, It would be a shame if Mia was seen with such an ugly sister. Because of this, my parents didn't want me to spend too much time with my sister. Mia didn't care about my illness at all. She treated me like any sister would, even sharing her toys and hair accessories with me. She stood up for me when people said mean things about my face. She was always there when I needed her. I'm so grateful for her kindness. But even though I love Mia and appreciate her support, my parents always favored her. They didn't show much interest in me. For example, even if Mia got average grades, they praised her a lot, saying, "Mia, you're amazing. You're not just pretty, but you're also smart. We're so proud of you." But when I did well on a test, they didn't seem to care. They'd say things like, "Just being smart isn't enough in life. Even if you're not very smart, you can still do well if you're good looking and friendly. But since you're not pretty, you'll have a tough time." Whenever I found a nice dress I liked, they'd say, "That dress would look great on Mia, but it won't suit you. People will laugh at you if you wear it." And when I wanted to try makeup, they discouraged me, saying, "Makeup won't help much in your case. It's a waste of time." They always compared me to Mia, and everything I did seemed to disappoint them. It made me lose confidence more and more. Mia tried to stand up for me against our parents, but it only made things worse. That's when I realized I didn't really belong in our family, and school wasn't any better. Boys in my class teased me with mean nicknames like monster or face weapon. Some even avoided me, afraid they might catch my illness if they touched me. Even in middle school, things didn't get much better. Some boys would make faces just because I was near them. Even though no one said anything directly to me, I could hear whispers about me. But what really hurt was when I became the target of a cruel game. There was a game where the loser had to confess their feelings to someone in the class, and I was often picked. Of course, I knew they were only confessing because they lost the game, so I always said no. But then they'd go around saying, "I got rejected by that monster girl." One boy even yelled at me for turning him down, saying, "Don't act all high and mighty just because it's a game." At the time, it felt really unfair to me, but I was convinced that my face was a problem. I thought I made people uncomfortable just by being around. I felt guilty. Throughout elementary and middle school, I didn't have any good memories with boys. But there was one exception, just one time, when I fell in love with a boy in my class. It happened in my sophomore year of high school. There was a boy in my class who I ended up sitting next to after the seats were shuffled. He treated me like anyone else, without making fun of me or avoiding me because of my face. He'd say good morning to me every day. I knew he didn't have any romantic feelings for me, but his simple greeting brought me so much happiness amidst all the teasing and avoidance. Naturally, I started to like him. I didn't really want to date him or anything like that. I just wanted our nice interactions to continue. But as time went on, I started to realize that I had feelings for him. After thinking about it a lot, I decided to ask my sister for advice. She told me, "Just be honest with him about how you feel." So after a lot of thinking, I left a letter on his desk telling him how I felt. A few days later, something strange was happening in class when I got there. People were whispering and looking at me. Then the boy came up to me and asked, "Did you leave this letter on my desk?" I nodded silently, looking down at the ground. Suddenly, I heard a ripping sound above me. Pieces of my torn letter were falling around me. It's a hassle when things like this happen. What will you do if rumors start because of this? You fell for me just because I said hi to you. You're so clueless about love. I didn't mean anything by it. If I gave you the wrong idea, I'm sorry, he said. Then the whole class started clapping and cheering. People were saying things like, "Wow, you're brave, and that's kind of sad, isn't it?" After that, everything's a blur. The next thing I knew, I was home. But I don't remember how I got there. All I could feel was guilt and sadness after that. I couldn't bear to go back to school after what happened, so I stopped going altogether. When my parents found out, instead of supporting me, they said, "Well, he had a point. You caused trouble, so you owe him an apology." They got mad at me for skipping school over something small and tried to make me go back, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. In the end, I dropped out of high school and isolated myself at home. My older sister was worried about me and tried to reach out, but our parents were harsh. They'd yell at me every morning or barge into my room to insult me, saying things like, "You're a disappointment," or "We wish we never had you." Every day, I felt more and more hopeless, wondering why I even existed. My sister noticed how bad things were and talked to our grandparents on our mom's side. The next day, they came over to listen to my side of the story. When they heard what happened at school and how our parents reacted, they were furious. They told our parents, "We'll take care of her," and rescued me from that situation. My grandparents didn't give up on me, even when I felt hopeless. They faced me with love and support. Alongside my sister, and little by little, I started to heal. Though my thoughts of ending my life quieted down, I couldn't shake off my fear and distrust of guys, no matter how hard I tried. But my grandpa always lifted me up, saying, "You'll find happiness in your own way, without needing to get married. We just want you to find joy in whatever path you choose. Forget about that guy who hurt you. Dwelling on him is a waste of time. You have so many bright futures ahead, even though we may not have much time left." My grandma was a constant source of comfort, telling me that as long as I was happy, that's all that mattered. She'd compliment me, saying things like, "Your skin is radiant, I envy you," or "Your eyes sparkle like jewels." My sister would often come over to our grandparents' place, and we'd chat and bond. We'd read magazines together, talk about cute makeup, and just enjoy each other's company. After living like this for about 3 years, I started feeling motivated to do something more. I decided to study again to get my high school diploma, which I eventually achieved. Then I began searching for work I could do from home and slowly started making money. It wasn't as much as what others made in regular jobs, but compared to the days when I felt trapped and hopeless, I felt like I had come a long way. Living at my grandparents' house, I was still scared of people's comments about my looks, so I stayed indoors. That's when my parents suddenly showed up one day without even a phone call beforehand. They barged in, saying they needed to talk to me. Out of the blue, they said, "There's a marriage proposal for you. The guy is the son of someone important in a medical foundation. He apparently has his own issues and struggles to find a partner, so they're suggesting you. Isn't this great? He's wealthy and he's willing to take someone like you, who's seen as a burden on society." I was shocked by this sudden news, but my grandparents stepped in to support me. They argued that it wasn't fair to make such a big decision without considering my feelings. My dad, sounding convincing, said, "This might be her only chance. She's been through so much because of how she looks. Why not see this as an opportunity for her to be happy?" I looked at the guy's photo in the marriage document. His face was partly covered by his hair, but I could tell he was overweight and had a peculiar look. I guessed he might also be facing pressure to get married, or he might have some unusual preferences. But even if I said no to the proposal, it seemed like negotiations with the other family were already happening. They were wealthy, and my parents would probably try to push me into the marriage. Despite my own feelings, I felt like I had to accept the marriage proposal to protect my grandparents from any potential trouble. When I said I would accept, my grandparents were shocked. They hugged me tightly, trying to convince me otherwise. "You don't have to agree to something so ridiculous," they said. But through tears, I told them, "Grandma, Grandpa, until now, I felt like life had no meaning. But because you were there for me, I found joy in living. I can never thank you enough. But I don't want to cause you any more trouble, so I've decided to go through with this marriage proposal. Maybe, like Dad said, this is my only chance." My grandparents cried silently and hugged me tightly. A few days later, I had to meet the guy from the proposal, Matthew, and his parents. I didn't expect this meeting to change anything. Matthew seemed shy and kept his head down. His hair covered most of his face, and his skin looked rough. He spoke so softly that I sometimes couldn't hear him. During our meeting, he hardly looked at my face and answered questions with short sentences. I couldn't help but wonder, is this man really going to be my husband? He can barely hold a conversation. But I felt like I had no choice. Both sets of parents were so eager about the marriage, acting like it was already decided. I felt pressured, like I couldn't say no. Eventually, everything was arranged. As the son of a wealthy family, Matthew provided us with a luxurious apartment filled with expensive appliances and furniture. But our conversations didn't flow well. It was like he didn't even see me. He was so quiet all the time. His constant silence started to weigh on me, so I tried to start a conversation. "Why did you agree to this marriage, Matthew?" Surprisingly, he began to take off his shirt. Confused and panicked, I saw that his skin was red and inflamed. He explained, "I have a skin condition called psoriasis. It's not contagious, so don't worry. But because of how it looks, I've never had any romantic experiences. People even spread rumors that I had an STD, which isn't true. And because of my appearance, my parents don't want anything to do with me. They probably arranged this marriage to get rid of me. I'm sorry for dragging you into this." After he explained, he put his shirt back on and bowed deeply to me. I noticed some inflammation on his hairline, and I realized he was growing his bangs long to hide it. "I understand. Please don't worry," I said. "I'm in a similar situation." When he looked up, I told him everything about my past. Hearing my story about high school, he started to cry. "I can't believe someone would treat you like that. It must have been so hard for you. It's awful how people treated you," he said, getting angry on my behalf and offering me comfort. Despite going through his own struggles, Matthew cried and got angry hearing about my past. I couldn't help but think, how kind is this man? When I asked him, he blushed and smiled shyly, saying, "I was thinking the same thing." From that moment on, we spent the whole night sharing our life stories, crying, getting angry, and understanding each other. I tried to learn more about his skin condition and researched different treatments, including diet changes and supplements. I noticed he was picky about food, especially vegetables, so I experimented with different flavors and cooking methods to make meals he enjoyed. Gradually, he started to enjoy eating more and began to feel better physically. We also started doing things like yoga to reduce stress and had many conversations. I saw Matthew's smile grow over time. He never said anything negative about my appearance. Instead, he would blush and say, "You're cute." Once, when I asked if he disliked how I looked, he reassured me, saying, "Not at all. It's part of who you are, and I think it's cute. You've been through so much, but you've stayed strong." "I don't think there's another woman who's as strong and wonderful as you," Matthew told me, and those words brought me so much comfort. Over the next few years, we worked on a plan to improve his skin condition. His inflammation started to calm down, and the redness on his hairline became less noticeable. Plus, with his disciplined lifestyle, he lost weight and transformed into a slim and handsome Matthew. I couldn't help but fall in love with him all over again when he trimmed his bangs. It suited him so well. Matthew, who used to be shy about his skin condition, said, "I feel a bit embarrassed to show Sophia." But as he gained confidence, people at his office started to see him differently. He hadn't told anyone about his disease before, thinking they wouldn't understand. But when he finally opened up, he was surprised that everyone accepted him. They even said, "Why didn't you tell us earlier? Trust us more." One day, as we were enjoying our time together, Matthew suddenly suggested, "Hey, what do you think about having a wedding ceremony?" Even though I had become a bit more positive since marrying him, the idea of facing a large crowd still scared me. When I hesitated, he reassured me, saying, "If you really don't like the idea, we don't have to do it." But I thought it would be a nice way to thank the people at my company who supported me. And it's all thanks to you, Sophia, that I can even think about this. The old me would have never considered a wedding because I was too ashamed of my skin condition. But with your help, my symptoms have improved, and I feel like I can face the future more confidently. His kind words touched me, and after thinking it over, I decided to take a step forward and agree to have a wedding ceremony. Since I didn't have many friends, I only invited my parents, grandparents, and my sister. However, less than 4 months before the wedding, my sister found out she was pregnant and decided to avoid gatherings for safety reasons. So in the end, only my parents and grandparents attended. My grandparents were happy to be there, but my parents clearly weren't thrilled about it. Despite their disapproval, they couldn't refuse due to their status, so they reluctantly came. The same went for Matthew's parents. They didn't seem pleased, but because some of their associates and acquaintances were attending, they reluctantly agreed to come. Both sets of parents were skilled at putting on a facade, so they said things they didn't truly mean in front of the other guests. They'd say things like, "We struggled with his illness, but we're happy to see how well he's grown." Or, "We're proud of our child for facing prejudice with strength." They even pretended to be moved to tears, and some guests, fooled by their false emotions and words, shed sympathetic tears. I couldn't help but feel astonished by their audacity, wanting to appear good despite everything. But Matthew wasn't one to stay silent. Our parents could see that. When it was time for him to speak, he chose to share about his past. He talked about how he faced discrimination in school because of his skin condition. Even though it wasn't contagious, people avoided touching anything he touched. Meeting and marrying me had given him hope. He also spoke about my struggles, how I was constantly compared to my older sister and verbally abused by our parents. He mentioned how I was deeply hurt by their words and couldn't even go outside because of cruel comments from classmates about my facial disease in high school. He also shared how he was berated by his parents for his skin condition, being called dirty repeatedly, and he showed proof of their mistreatment. With a determined resolve, Matthew played a recording of his parents' hurtful comments about his skin condition. The recording echoed through the venue, capturing awful statements like, "Your skin disgusts us," and "We regret having a child with such dirty skin." His parents tried to stop it, but it was too late. The stunned silence of the guests spoke volumes, and my parents looked uncomfortable as whispers spread around them. Despite the awkward ending to our wedding, many guests expressed support, saying, "You've been through a lot, and we're here for you." However, this revelation caused a stir later on. It turned out that Matthew's parents were leaders of a non-profit organization dedicated to supporting disabled individuals, advocating for a society where they can live without barriers. The fact that they mistreated their own son, who had a skin condition, contradicted their organization's principles. Criticism and opposition arose, leading them to step down from their leadership roles in the organization. As for my parents, it came to light that they had accepted a hefty dowry to arrange my marriage to Matthew. They were branded as monsters who sold their own child for money by those around them. However, they foolishly squandered the dowry on their own selfish desires and decided to gamble in the stock market without any knowledge, resulting in significant losses. Eventually, they found themselves in debt exceeding $200,000, far surpassing the dowry they received. They had the nerve to ask for our help, but we firmly declined. Despite their persistent attempts, we decided to cut ties with them and move away, changing our phone numbers. Now we're living happily together. It seems like fate truly brought us together. I'm incredibly content at this moment. Though the beginning was rough, meeting and marrying Matthew has brought me immense happiness. Thank you for sticking with me until the end. I hope to catch up with you again in the future. My mother-in-law told me something surprising. She said, "We're going to live together now. We turned the house into 2 separate homes to make it easier. Is the house in your name, Emma? Sorry to ask, but can you pay the $80,000 bill for the changes?" My mother-in-law and husband thought it was funny, but I felt determined. I was going to tell them something important, even though my husband didn't know yet. I had proof too. My name is Emma Davis, and I'm 26 years old. I live a little away from the city in a place surrounded by nature. I work in an office and draw pictures for fun. Recently, I've been sharing my drawings online and reading the comments people leave. My husband, who is 3 years older than me, and I have been happily married and living in our beloved old farmhouse since we got married. But there's been a visitor who comes by once a month since then, and they always give me a headache. "Emma, Emma, I'm here. Please open up quickly." I hurried to the front door when I heard the insistent banging. "Ah, it's my mother-in-law. I'll open it right away," I said, even though there's a doorbell right next to the door. I tried to smile as I opened the sliding door. "There are so many bugs around here. It's so annoying. Is George still at work? Poor thing, even on Saturday. Oh, I brought some of his favorite food." I saw a tired-looking woman holding a big bag waiting at the door. As she chattered on, I tried to keep up my fake smile. This visitor, who comes once a month, is none other than my husband's mother, my mother-in-law. Since my husband is an only child, she feels it's her duty to look after him even after we got married. She even gives me tips on how to manage the house. Last time she visited, she rearranged the whole fridge, making it a hassle for me to prepare breakfast the next day. I remember my husband telling me before we got married, if my parents ever need care, we'll live together. I hope you understand. I'm disappointed at the thought of leaving our lovely old house when the time comes, but I've accepted it. What bothers me more is the idea of living with my mother-in-law all the time. I feel sorry for my husband, as it's not something I'm looking forward to. Fast forward 2 years into our married life in the farmhouse. My husband told me that his father slipped on the stairs at home and broke his leg. They'll need our help from now on. Let's live together, just like we talked about before we got married. Yes, I'm worried too. So I think it's a good idea. Can I still do my drawings? I was concerned about my father-in-law's health, so I agreed to move in with them without hesitation. But I was worried that taking care of my in-laws and doing housework might leave me with no time for my drawing hobby. Whether he knew about my worries or not, my husband just said, "I want you to focus on the house," and left for his office. Left alone in my room, I felt like I was giving up on my husband. As I looked through my drawings, I started sorting out my feelings. Just when I had decided to live with them, something unexpected happened. While I was at work, I suddenly felt numbness in my hands and feet and got really dizzy. I collapsed. Thankfully, a colleague called an ambulance, and although I wasn't in danger, it turned out I had had a stroke at a young age after a medical checkup. Even though I had been warned about high blood pressure during health checkups before, I regretted not taking it seriously and going to the hospital. From the time I found out about the illness to being hospitalized, including tests, surgery, and recovery, it took about 2 months. It all happened so quickly, and I realized my husband showed very little concern for me. After being diagnosed with a stroke at a young age, I called my husband with trembling hands. But all I heard was disappointment in his voice, saying, "So living together will have to wait, huh?" I couldn't believe he was more worried about living arrangements than my health. Luckily, my father-in-law was still in the hospital with a fracture, so I didn't have to worry about taking care of him. This allowed me to focus on my treatment, which was a silver lining. Plus, since we didn't have kids, that wasn't an added concern. Suddenly, I thought of my mother-in-law, always talking about wanting to see her grandchild soon. But I pushed that thought away and grabbed my sketchbook. Lately, I had been too busy with preparations to live with my in-laws and undergoing tests since my stroke to indulge in my favorite pastime of drawing. I knew once I moved in with them, I'd have even less time for it. I decided to view my time in the hospital as a gift of freedom from God and resolved to enjoy my hobby to the fullest. Once this period was over, I promised myself to give my best to my husband and in-laws, whether it was doing chores or anything else. The 2-month hospital stay flew by, and finally it was time to leave. My husband casually asked if he should pick me up, but I wanted some time alone, so I declined, feeling a bit guilty. As I rode the bus, I looked out the window and saw the familiar scenery. I realized I was already near home. The sunlight shining on the lush green leaves was breathtaking, and I felt a mix of emotions, thinking goodbye to this beautiful natural setting. Since my in-laws' house is closer to the city, my life is going to change a lot from now on. Feeling a bit sad, I stepped off the bus at the familiar stop. As I walked towards what was supposed to be my beloved old home, I suddenly froze in astonishment. Instead of the familiar private house I knew so well, there stood a completely unfamiliar house that I had never seen before. After being in a hospital for about 2 months, I double-checked the surrounding buildings and the path I took, wondering if I had somehow gotten a location wrong. But it was no mistake. There was no point in wandering around, so I timidly pressed the intercom of the unfamiliar house. A voice I knew well, undoubtedly my husband's, responded with a simple yes. Still feeling confused, I quietly said, "It's Michelle," into the intercom. The front door creaked open and my husband, dressed casually, appeared. "Ah, welcome home. You're back earlier than I expected. I had the day off today. I could have picked you up," George said. "George, what happened to our house? Why has it changed so much?" I interrupted him, feeling disbelief, noticing his relaxed demeanor, perhaps indicating he had just woken up with his messy hair. Ignoring my anxiousness, George only responded vaguely, "Huh. What's going on? What happened?" without addressing my question. Just then, laughter echoed from inside the house. Unable to believe it, I pushed past my husband and made my way to the living room. Opening the unfamiliar door leading to the living room, I saw my mother-in-law lying on a couch, watching TV. She was laughing heartily, holding her stomach. "Why is my mother-in-law in this house?" I asked, bewildered. "Michelle, welcome back. Hospital stays can be long, but don't worry. I took care of the house while you were gone," my mother-in-law said casually. I was puzzled by what my mother-in-law meant by taking care of the house. Did she mean chores? With a sinking feeling, I pressed her on why our old house had changed so much. Without any hint of remorse, she replied, "Well, since we're all going to live together, I thought it would be more comfortable to remodel it into a duplex." The words "remodeled it into a duplex" kept echoing in my head. My mother-in-law had always been one to meddle in our lives, but I never imagined she would renovate our house without asking. And weren't we supposed to move into my in-laws' house, closer to the city center? Every time she visited our old house, she complained about the bugs and the walk from the station. So why all the changes now? Oh, and if something else important I have to tell you, my mother-in-law said, switching off the TV with a grin. The remodeling cost a bit. I believe the title to this house is under your name, Michelle. I'm sorry, but could you handle the payment? My mother-in-law chuckled, devoid of any hint of apology. Ah, it's $80,000, she said, her smile growing wider. That's the cost of remodeling, and the title to this house comes with it, Michelle. $80,000. Her unexpected words hit me like a punch to the head, and my legs started shaking. I couldn't even find the words to respond. As I stared at my mother-in-law, stunned and laughing without a care, my husband appeared at the entrance and slipped into the living room. Seeing him, I instinctively moved towards him, holding on to a faint hope that he would support me. I repeated to my husband exactly what my mother-in-law had said, desperately awaiting his reaction, but all I got from him was a cold reply. Well, that sounds about right. You'll handle it, won't you? That's just who he is. When I had a stroke, he cared more about our living arrangements than my health. He's the kind of man who listens to his mother's every word, no matter how absurd. A man who always believes his mother is right. My discomfort and dissatisfaction towards my husband reached a boiling point. Once it overflowed, I was done. With all my heart, I decided I would leave this family behind. I understand now, George. I'm going to divorce you and your mother, Cecilia. And no, Cecilia, you can handle the renovation costs on your own. I declared this all at once and turned my back on them, intending to leave the room quickly, but they weren't going to let me go so easily. I've been losing interest in you anyway, so it's no big deal. But remember, this house is in your name, Emma, so you have a responsibility to pay, George remarked. That's right, feel free to leave, but please settle your dues first, added Cecilia. I was astonished by their selfishness. I couldn't help but sigh. I was sure if I turned around, I'd see their smug faces grinning in victory, but I refused to look back. I stood tall and replied, You keep saying the house is in my name, George, but did you forget that ownership has been transferred to you? I revealed the truth, but they only laughed, thinking I was lying to avoid paying. That's when I brought up how George had asked me to change the property's ownership when we got married, as he didn't want the house to be in his wife's name for appearance's sake. Since I didn't particularly care about the property title, I had immediately transferred it to his name. Upon hearing this, their laughter abruptly stopped, and I could feel their panic gradually setting in. I don't recall saying such a thing. There's no proof anyway, George retorted. Anticipating this response, I turned back to face them, walked past them, and opened a drawer in a shelf from our old house. Let's see, it should be somewhere around. Ah, here it is. This is the proof, I said, taking out a document that listed the property and house ownership and showed it to them. When I pointed to the part that showed the ownership was in George's name, his face went pale. That's fraud. I never thought you'd actually do it, and I definitely can't pay such a huge sum of $80,000. George exclaimed. I was disgusted by my husband's reaction. He started yelling as soon as he realized the payment obligation was on him. Since a decent conversation seems impossible, let's communicate through lawyers from now on. Cecilia, your son seems to be in quite a pickle, so please take good care of him from now on, I stated calmly beside my loud husband. I smiled at my mother-in-law, who stood dazed, and finally turned my back on them, leaving their home for good. After that, my husband called several times, but I chose to ignore him entirely, opting instead to communicate formally through a lawyer, given our strained relationship and the issues with my mother-in-law. The divorce was settled without any problems. Regarding my husband's accusation that changing the property's ownership was fraud, it was determined that it was a mutual decision made when we got married 2 years ago. My lawyer reassured me with a smile that this was neither fraud nor anything illegal. With that, all the uncertainty inside me disappeared completely. It turned out that I was supposed to foot the bill for renovating the house as soon as I got discharged from a hospital. I couldn't help but appreciate the well-executed, spiteful move of pushing me into a difficult situation just after I had undergone surgery and rehabilitation and finally got discharged due to illness. In the end, since the house was in my husband's name, it was his responsibility to pay the hefty renovation costs, and he ended up cornering himself. Moreover, I was able to secure alimony after the divorce was finalized. My husband, faced with a claim for an amount he couldn't possibly pay off, either borrowed money from risky sources or didn't pay at all. While I was in the midst of the legal battle with my husband and mother-in-law, I received an apology from my father-in-law, Bob, who had been hospitalized with a broken leg, saying, "I'm sorry for my wife and son's behavior." Of course, it didn't seem that Bob was directly involved in this matter, but it couldn't be denied that for 2 years after our marriage, he had turned a blind eye to his wife and my indifferent husband. After briefly replying to Bob's message, I made the decision to cut all ties with my old family and start afresh. Since then, my health has been gradually improving and I was able to return to work. When I was married, I used to draw illustrations, but I always felt restricted by my husband's presence. Now, I can immerse myself in drawing whenever and however I want. Initially, drawing was just a hobby, but now I receive job offers through the social networking site where I post my illustrations. I spend more time drawing for work than for pleasure these days. My current dream is to buy an old farmhouse in a somewhat rural town using the alimony from my husband and my savings, and to open an art studio there. Today, I'm taking the first step towards realizing that dream by heading to see an old farmhouse. As I gaze out at the scenery from the bus, I can't help but think back to the day I left the hospital, the day that changed my life forever. The natural scenery outside remains the same as it was that day, but my feelings are clearer now, and I'm filled with excitement for the new life that awaits me. The leaves on the trees, illuminated by the sunlight, look so bright and dazzling. So here's the deal. I'm going to buy that fancy car from you. Margareta doesn't need it. She's just a regular person. My parents mentioned they wanted a new car, and since I got married to Brandon, he's been acting pretty selfish. He's been eyeing up the nice car my parents gave me, and I've had enough of it. My name's Margareta. I'm 25, and I met Brandon in college. We've been married for 2 years now. Brandon is outgoing and popular. Unlike me, I'm shy and don't have many friends. We started talking more during college classes, then we began studying together. I never thought someone like Brandon would be interested in me, but he surprised me by asking me out. I was really happy and said yes right away. That's how our relationship started. It made sense why I liked Brandon. He was handsome, friendly, and serious about his studies. But for him, things should have been different. He had lots of cute, stylish female friends. Finding another girlfriend wouldn't have been hard for him. Once, I bravely asked him, "Do you really think I'm the right one for you?" He seemed surprised and asked why I was bringing it up. I admitted, I'm not very confident. I wanted to know why he chose me. After thinking for a moment, he said, "I guess it's comfortable being with you." I wasn't satisfied, but before I could say anything, he seemed annoyed and started playing with his phone. Not wanting to argue, I quickly ended the conversation. "Yeah, you're right. Sorry for bringing it up." Even though I still had doubts, our relationship kept going smoothly. Time passed quickly. We finished college, got married, and moved into a condo. I got a job at a regular company while Brandon went off to do more school and research. When I told my mom we were getting married, she was really happy. She said, "That's great news." We were starting to worry. "We thought you'd introduce us to a boyfriend sooner." I felt bad for not telling them about Brandon earlier, but Mom understood. She said I've always been independent, handling things on my own. Knowing Brandon was there for me made her feel better. My parents met in college and still love each other a lot, which I admire. Dad worked hard, climbing up the ladder at a big company. Mom supported him and also pursued her passion for cooking. She became really good at it and even teaches cooking classes now. They respected each other's lives and gave each other space. Growing up with them, I learned to be independent too. I wasn't great at much except studying, so I didn't go to grad school. I wanted to be self-sufficient and start my own life soon. Even though I grew up in a well-off family, I didn't want to rely on them forever. I wanted to have a family of my own, like Mom and Dad. I hope to make them proud by having kids someday. It might sound simple, but for someone like me, it's a big goal. Once we moved in together, Brandon started acting more selfishly. He was a grad student and worked part-time, but he didn't pitch in much for our living costs. I tried bringing it up gently, saying, "Hey, Brandon, it would be really helpful if you could contribute more of your part-time earnings towards our expenses." But he just coldly replied, "I do contribute some, you know. And didn't you say you'd handle the living expenses when we moved in together, Margareta?" Brandon always talked about wanting to be a professor, which is why he went to grad school. I had assured him not to worry about money when we got married, telling him I had a good job. I murmured, yeah, I did say that, feeling unsure about what to say next. Brandon sighed heavily. You wouldn't get it. Being a grad student costs a lot for socializing and stuff. Oh, and by the way, I need money for a research trip. Can you lend me $500? I'll pay you back later. Brandon's financial pressure became more common and our problems got worse. He started spending more nights away from home, leaving me waiting by the phone with cold meals in front of me. When he did come home happy for a change, I was too forgiving. He'd sometimes say things like, Hey, Margarita, remember you wanted to go somewhere? I have tomorrow off, let's go. He'd bring up outings out of nowhere, or compliment my cooking, making me feel special. Each time he was nice to me, I'd catch a glimpse of the happy married life I wanted, and it made me hesitate. But I knew this wasn't normal. I felt lonely and anxious, but I couldn't talk to anyone about it. I didn't want to upset my parents, who were thrilled about our marriage, but they must have started to notice something wasn't right. When I finally visited my parents after a long time, Dad suggested I stay over and have dinner with them. Mom cooked a big meal to welcome me back. During dinner, Dad mentioned my Aunt Ellen had visited recently and wanted to see me. He said she's always spontaneous like that. Ellen was lively, ambitious, and independent. I'll reach out to her soon, thanks, Dad. Dad mentioned how much my Aunt Ellen loved me and how she always teased about Brandon stealing me from her, even though she didn't want to get married herself. That's just how she was. Before I met Brandon, Ellen was more like a close friend than an aunt. I could talk to her about anything, even things I couldn't tell my parents. She understood me better than anyone and was always there for me. At first, I was too shy to tell her about Brandon, but I wanted to see her again and show her I was doing okay. A few days after staying with my parents, I met Ellen at a cafe. She was dressed really stylishly, as usual. Ellen checked out my outfit and said gently, Margarita, marriage is just the start of a lifelong journey for a woman. You should always feel confident and attractive, no matter what. Your clothes can make a big difference, so don't forget to take care of yourself. Then she took a sip of her tea gracefully. I totally forgot about fashion lately. I'm sorry for not keeping in touch for so long. I murmured apologetically. Ellen replied, That's typical of you, Margarita. It's good to be honest and serious, but being too timid usually comes from lack of experience. But I was thrilled when I heard you found someone special. I thought, finally, Margarita is taking a step forward. It had been ages since I spent time with someone outside on a day off, and the weather was perfect. We sat on the terrace, basking in the warm sunlight. In that peaceful moment, I felt like I could talk to Ellen about my worries without feeling too down. I had hoped even someone as shy as me could make it work with Brandon at first. But Ellen listened to my whole story without interrupting, just nodding kindly. When I finished, she asked, I suppose you haven't mentioned this to your parents, have you, Margarita? No, I even hesitated to tell you today. I didn't want to admit my weaknesses to anyone. I thought I should be able to handle this on my own, to be truly independent. I know if Mom and Dad found out, they'd want to bring me back home right away, so I want to try to deal with this by myself as much as possible. Ellen respected my decision and didn't push further, but she added, If you ever really need help, let me know first. If my dear Margarita asks for help, I'll be there for you no matter where I am. A month later, Mom called and said, When you have time, could you come over? It's not urgent. Since I had the next day off, I went to see my parents. When I saw a car parked in the driveway, I couldn't contain my excitement. Dad, is this car new? Did you just get it? Dad, can I really take it for a spin? What if I crash it? I teased, feeling excited about the fancy car. Don't worry about that. This card is for you, Margarita. Use it however you like. It'll come in handy, Mom whispered to me. We saw this car in a TV commercial, and you said you liked it, Dad recalled. So it's our gift to you. You've been going through a tough time lately, so we wanted to cheer you up. If things get tough, just drive this and come home anytime, he said with a warm smile. The car Dad got for me was an SUV from a famous foreign brand, and he even arranged a parking spot near my condo. I couldn't believe it, and I laughed in disbelief. Later, when I was driving downtown, I reached into my pocket, found the car key, and pressed the button. The lights flashed in all directions. Just then, I heard a familiar voice calling out from behind. What's with the car? I turned to see Brandon, my husband, who hadn't been home in a while. It felt like we were living separate lives. I was speechless as he looked at the car with a smug expression. Ah, I see. A gift from your parents, right? Every time I faced Brandon, I struggled to find my voice. But I was tired of feeling that way. Brandon, don't you care anymore? Do you even care about me? I managed to say, gathering my courage. Then Brandon said something shocking. Are you just realizing now? Did you really think I loved you all this time? It's ridiculous how hopeful you are. His dry laugh rang in my ears. Something inside me snapped, and I blurted out, louder than usual. Then why did you marry me? Wow, really? You're going to be that cold about it? I couldn't believe what Brandon was saying. So marrying me was just a meal ticket for you, huh? And now you want the car too because it's wasted on me? That's just great. Brandon didn't seem to care about how hurtful his words were. And if you say no, we're getting divorced. Without me, you'll never find another man. So think about it. With those words, Brandon left without a second thought, leaving me feeling angry and heartbroken, my head pounding with a headache. I sat in the driver's seat for a while, trying to calm down. Eventually, I called my Aunt Elin for advice. A few days later, I agreed to the divorce and moved back in with my parents. They welcomed me with open arms, and life started to feel peaceful again. But that peace was short-lived. One afternoon, Brandon showed up at my parents' house with his parents. They sat down in the living room, and Brandon's father spoke up in a stern tone. We're here to talk about our son's divorce. It's urgent. When drafting the divorce papers, Margareta warned Brandon, if you don't agree to the divorce, I'll use my parents' connections at the university to ruin your future. It wouldn't be hard to damage the career of a junior registrar if their daughter complains. Brandon truly loved Margareta. Her behavior was too harsh. It's clear she was trying to intimidate him. We could easily challenge the divorce, Brandon's father said, feeling deceived by Margareta. Behind her plain appearance, she's actually a mean and greedy woman. Poor Brandon. I heard she paid him to stay away. She must have had other men over. We need to go to family court and claim that Brandon was threatened by his wife. But if there's a proper apology, things might change. For example, if Margareta gives up that car she's driving, it might help smooth things over. Brandon and his parents remained silent, just listening to their parents' protests. Suddenly, the doorbell rang, and Mom went to answer it. Ellen appeared behind Mom as she came back to the living room. Sorry I'm late. How's the discussion going? Brandon's family had met Ellen once at my wedding. What are you doing here? It's rude to barge in like that. We're busy right now. Outsiders should leave. Brandon's mother objected. No, don't be like that. You've heard about Brandon's divorce, right? How would an outsider like you know about that? I had been informed by my brother earlier. I couldn't miss such an important moment for my dear niece, Ellen said, offering a reassuring glance. You're probably here to stop the divorce or for money. Can you still say that after seeing this? Ellen pulled out a stack of documents from her bag, laid them out on the table, and showed them to everyone. I hired a detective to look into this. It turns out Brandon has been cheating on Margareta with multiple women despite being married. He hardly came home because of it. He took advantage of Margareta's kindness and even asked her for money. That's ridiculous. I was just busy with my research at the university. When I did come home, we ate together and went on trips, right? We were like any other married couple, right, Margareta? Say something. Brandon, you don't need to defend yourself. We'll handle this. It's not your fault. We understand, his father reassured him. That's right. These documents from who knows where are surely lies. Our Brandon would never cheat. He's such a kind and outstanding son, his mother protested. You might be kind to your parents, but that kindness seems to end there. Like father, like son. Now Brandon's mother, take a look at these photos, Ellen said, pulling out a picture from the documents. I recently stayed at a hotel for a business meeting and saw Nicholas there. He was with another woman, looking very cozy, so I had the detective look into Nicholas too. The results were just as I expected. Do you understand now? Brandon's mother's face went pale as she grabbed the documents and examined them closely. What is this, Nicholas? How long have you been doing this? It's all lies, isn't it, Veronica? Stop looking. Give me that. Nicholas, looking panicked, tried to snatch the documents, but it was too late. Veronica, distraught, confronted Nicholas. You've been cheating on me. The car you wanted so badly was for her in these photos, wasn't it? No matter how hard Nicholas tried to calm her down, Veronica wouldn't listen. The discussion about Brandon's divorce was forgotten as Veronica stormed out of the house, crying, with Nicholas following after her. Left behind, Brandon said, "Hey, wait, what about me?" and followed them out in confusion. The rest of us were left in stunned silence for a while, but Aylin had a satisfied look on her face, winking at me. Later, Aylin told me that Brandon's parents did end up getting divorced. "You won't fall for such a terrible man again. Let's make you more attractive. I'll teach you everything about grooming yourself as a woman." Despite her busy schedule, Ellen visited me often and took me to various places like meals and shopping trips. During that time, I learned a lot from her. A year after the divorce, I made the decision to go to graduate school. I worked hard to improve myself, focusing on my studies. Time passed quickly, and one day, I heard someone call my name at a street intersection. I turned around to see Brandon. "It's been a while. You've changed a lot, haven't you?" At first, I didn't even recognize him. In Brandon's eyes, the woman standing before him was no longer the plain ex-wife he knew, but had transformed into an incredibly beautiful and attractive woman. Meanwhile, Brandon had fallen on hard times due to the scandal of his parents' divorce. It seemed he was no longer attending graduate school. His parents, Nicholas and Veronica, had decided to stop providing him with financial support because of the trouble he caused. He was struggling to afford his tuition and living expenses, far from the carefree life he once enjoyed. The women who used to be interested in him had left him one by one. The former glory he once had vanished in an instant, and now he found himself face to face with his ex-wife, who seemed to be a completely different person. As Brandon was about to suggest catching up, a man approached and asked, "Sorry for the wait. Are you a friend of Margarita's?" It was Leonard, the man I was currently dating. "Wow, that guy is really handsome, isn't he? He's so tall. Could he be a model?" commented a group of women nearby, looking at Leonard. "He's someone from my past, but it's okay. We're finished talking. Let's go, shall we?" Leonard said, taking my hand and briefly acknowledging Brandon. Brandon stood there, stunned, as Leonard led me away by the hand. Without a second thought for Brandon, Leonard and I walked towards the crosswalk, and I didn't look back, keeping my gaze straight ahead as we left. "Mommy, wake up, wake up." My daughter shook me gently, her face full of worry. "Sarah, what's wrong?" I asked, rubbing my eyes as I woke up. "Mommy, I think you shouldn't be with Daddy anymore," she said urgently. I was wide awake in an instant, confused by her words. "What do you mean?" I asked, trying to understand. Sarah explained that she thought it would be better if Dad and I split up. "Why would you say that?" I was shocked by her suggestion, but as she explained, I realized she had a point. My name is Emma Simpson, and I'm a 34-year-old mom who works full-time. I sell insurance for a big company. Balancing work and taking care of Sarah, especially since I have to drop her off and pick her up from daycare, is tough. I have to finish all my work between 9 o'clock a.m. and 5 o'clock p.m. I've been doing this job since before I got married, and now more than 10 years have flown by. I've worked hard and earned my place in the company. Even though I have a family, I can't afford to slack off at work. Why do I work so hard? It's for my daughter, Sarah. She just turned 5, and she's such a bright kid. Sometimes I'm amazed by how mature she is for her age. My husband and I want to give Sarah all kinds of experiences and lessons, but in today's world, everything costs money. So for Sarah's future, I need to work hard to earn as much as I can. I push myself every day just in case something unexpected happens. Some people might say, "You don't need to work so hard. Doesn't your husband earn enough?" Well, yes, he does work. But here's the thing. My husband's job isn't very stable. He works for a company that hasn't been doing well lately, so his salary keeps getting smaller. Right now, it's only about a third of what I make. It's hard to rely on him for money. The other night, after Sarah went to bed, my husband came to me nervously. "Emma, can I borrow some money?" he asked. "What for?" "I haven't even got this month's paycheck yet," I replied. "I promise I'll pay it all back next month. I had a few drinking parties and some other expenses. I'm short on cash," Keek explained. "Wait, you spent your entire salary on yourself?" "I can't believe it," I said, surprised. I'm sorry, but I couldn't say no. Lately this has been Keith's behavior. He always finds an excuse not to give me the agreed living expenses and even asks me for money. He usually says it's for drinking parties or to help his parents. I can't be sure if he's really spending money for those reasons, but I've stopped confronting him about it. It seems like he always relies on my money. What would he do if I didn't lend it to him? Remembering our past talks, Keith mentioned he finds it hard to save money and his bank account is almost empty. That means if he needs cash, he has to borrow it from somewhere, possibly getting into debt. With a 5-year-old daughter, I don't want her to grow up thinking her dad is bad with money, so I usually end up lending him money. Okay, how about $200? You're a lifesaver, Emma. I promise I'll pay you back everything next month, Keith said gratefully. You always say that, but you've never actually paid me back, have you? I replied, feeling frustrated. Well, I'm sorry. But this time, I'll definitely pay you back. And I'll stop going to drinking parties, Keith promised. You better think it through. Our priority is Sarah, I reminded him. I know, Keith said, sounding remorseful. I couldn't help but wonder if Keith truly understood the seriousness of our situation. Doubting him made me feel awful, but sometimes it was hard not to. I let out a deep sigh, feeling conflicted. I support Keith so much not just because he's my husband, but because he's an amazing dad to Sarah. Every weekend he makes sure to spend quality time with her. One morning, Keith suggested, Emma, I'll take care of Sarah today. Why don't you go out and relax? But I have so much to do at home, I replied. Don't worry about it. We can order lunch and tidy up together. I'll handle what I can, Keith insisted. Really? Sarah, still half asleep, smiled. Can you wait, Sarah? It'll be just you and Daddy playing, I said to her. Rubbing her eyes, Sarah hugged me and said, I'm fine with that, Mommy. Okay then, maybe I'll go shopping for a bit, I said, feeling a bit relieved. Yay. But don't forget to get me something too, Sarah exclaimed. I'll bring back your favorite bread, I promised. Yay, thank you, Mommy. Sarah cheered, her face lighting up with joy. Sarah, at just 5 years old, behaves surprisingly well. Of course, I wouldn't leave her alone at home. Even though I felt a bit nervous about leaving her with my husband, just in case, I left a note in Sarah's bag with my phone number on it. I always remind her, call me if anything happens. Everything will be okay. That day, I went shopping by myself for the first time in a while. But even after browsing the department store, I couldn't find anything I really wanted. So instead of buying something for myself, I picked out some clothes I thought Sarah would like and got her favorite chocolate croissant. I'm home, I announced as I opened the door. Sarah came running to me with a big smile. Mommy, welcome back. How was shopping? Did you have fun? I'm back, Sarah. It was nice to have some time to myself. Here's the surprise I got for you, I said, handing her the treats. Wow, a chocolate croissant and new clothes too. Can we have the croissant tomorrow morning? Wait, where's Daddy? Oh, Daddy's out on the balcony talking on the phone, I replied. On the phone? Who's he talking to? I wondered aloud. When I peeked out onto the balcony, I saw Sarah was right. My husband was happily chatting away while smoking. When I tapped on the window, he looked surprised and quickly ended the call, asking, You're back already? Yeah, I'm back. But who were you talking to? I asked. Oh, it was just work stuff, he replied casually. You left Sarah alone inside the house? I asked, feeling a bit frustrated. I'm sorry it came up suddenly. Sorry, Sarah. He apologized, looking sheepish. Sarah looked disappointed and said, Mommy, did you know? Daddy said he'd play with me, but he was on the phone a lot today. Really? Yeah, you're right. He promised we'd read a book together. I confirmed, feeling a bit let down. When I looked at my husband, he seemed regretful. That night, we had dinner together as usual, and I bathed Sarah. Because I felt bad for leaving her alone during the day, I tried to spend extra time with her. After Sarah fell asleep, I had a serious talk with my husband. Keith, are you really that busy? It feels like you're always on work calls, even on weekends. Yeah, the workload has been crazy, and I've had to do a lot of overtime. So when I've been coming home late lately, it's because of work, not going out drinking. Okay, it's because of work, but when you're on the phone, can you make sure to spend time with Sarah too? Work is important, but so is our family, I reminded him. Okay, but Sarah looked really lonely. From now on, when I go out, I'll take Sarah with me. And if you're going to be busy with work, just let me know in advance, Keith promised. Got it. I'm going to bed now, Keith said, bidding good night before heading to the bedroom with his phone. For the past 6 months, Sarah and I had been sleeping in the same bed more often, while Keith slept alone in the bedroom. Although I enjoyed sleeping next to Sarah, I couldn't deny that our time together as a couple had decreased. Keith didn't seem bothered by it, but as a woman, I sometimes felt a twinge of loneliness. Then, one night, "Mommy, wake up." Sarah's sudden voice jolted me awake. I glanced at the clock. It was 2 a.m. in the quiet darkness. Keith must be asleep in the other room. I sat up and asked Sarah what was wrong. "Mommy, I have a request," Sarah said seriously. "A request? What is it?" "I want you to break up with Daddy." "What?" Sarah's words snapped me out of my drowsiness instantly. "What did you just say?" "Mommy, I want you to break up with Daddy." Sarah had indeed said those words. Trying to mask my shock, I looked into her eyes. "Why would you say something like that?" "Because, Mommy, if things stay like this, you're in danger." "Danger? What do you mean? I'm okay." "But Dad, he wants to hurt you." "What happened, Sarah?" I asked, my heart pounding in my chest. Tears streamed down Sarah's face as she cried, but she seemed to calm down a bit when I gently stroked her back. "Earlier, when I got up to use the bathroom, I heard Dad talking on the phone in his room." "Really? What was he talking about?" I asked, feeling a mix of worry and confusion. "He said it would be good if something happened to you, Emma, so we could get the insurance money." "What's insurance money?" I asked, though deep down, I already knew. They were talking about hurting me on purpose. Why, Keith? Why would he say that? "Also, Daddy said, 'I love you' on the phone, but not to you." "It was to someone else," Sarah added. "Don't worry, Sarah. I'll make sure everything's okay," I reassured her, though tears were welling up in my eyes again. My daughter, so young yet so perceptive. She must have sensed something was wrong. Children are often very aware of their parents' feelings and actions, even at a young age. Despite her tender years, Sarah must be worried about my safety. At that moment, tears of gratitude and anger mixed in my eyes. Gratitude towards Sarah for her bravery and concern, and anger and sadness towards Keith for his actions. My little girl trying so hard to protect me. Now that she's spoken up, it's time for me to take action too. I have to do something about this situation myself. Looking at Sarah, I began to speak slowly. "Sarah, I need to talk about something very important. Can you listen carefully?" "I'm listening, Mommy. And if what you said earlier is true, then you can't stay with Daddy anymore, right?" "That's right. I'm considering leaving this house. What do you think, Sarah?" Sarah paused for a moment, thinking deeply, but then she looked at me with determination and replied, "I want to stay with you, Mommy. Are you sure about leaving?" "Yes, I'm sure. I can't be without you." "Thank you, Sarah. Let's go." "Okay." I instructed her to quietly and quickly gather her things. Sarah began to pack her backpack, being careful not to make any noise to alert her father. I hadn't realized how mature and responsible she had become. Touched by her growth, I too prepared to leave, leaving my wedding ring on the living room table. Together, we left the house. It was still dark outside when we arrived at my parents' house and rang the doorbell at 5:00 a.m. My mother, looking sleepy, answered the door. Emma and Sarah, too. "What brings you here so early?" "I'm sorry for dropping in like this, Mom. Can we stay here for a while?" "Of course, dear. But what's going on?" "There's something you need to talk about." After my mother showed me to the living room, she put Sarah to bed in the adjacent room. Sarah looked exhausted and quickly drifted off to sleep. A comforting cup of tea sat on the table in front of me, courtesy of my mother. Taking a sip, I gathered my thoughts and began to speak. "It seems Keith is planning something involving me, possibly an accident," I said, the words heavy on my tongue. My parents were stunned into silence. My father, trying to maintain his composure, asked, "What do you mean? Why would Keith do such a thing?" Sarah overheard Keith talking on the phone. He told the person he loved her. "I suspect he's having an affair." "That's unbelievable." "An affair?" But Sarah only heard the call. "How can you be sure?" My father's disbelief was evident in his tone. "I brought Keith's tablet. If we look into it, things might become clearer," I said, pulling out the tablet from my bag. Since Keith wasn't likely using his phone to communicate with his lover, he must have been using this tablet instead. When I opened it, I found that it wasn't locked. As I cautiously scrolled through the screen, my suspicions were confirmed when I opened the email app. There were numerous exchanges with a woman I didn't recognize. This, my mother pointed at the screen, appears to be a detailed plan to cause an accident involving you. I quickly snapped photos of the emails as solid evidence and printed out the conversation for future reference. Just then, my cell phone rang from inside my bag. Glancing at the screen, I saw it was a call from Keith. With determination, I answered the call and switched to speaker mode. "Hello, what's up, Emma? Where are you?" I woke up and no one was in the house. "I'm worried," Keith's voice came through. "Is that all you have to say? Really? What do you mean?" "I'm worried about the two of you," I retorted, my voice trembling with anger. "How dare you say that? Are you planning to get me caught in an accident?" Keith's response was swift, his tone defensive. "What? Why would you say that?" Keith's voice over the phone sounded shaken. He must have been shocked to realize that I knew about the secret plan he had been hiding. He probably used to call his mistress while I was asleep. Now that he knew I was aware of everything, he must be completely confused. And he probably hasn't realized yet that I have a reliable ally in Sarah. "I heard it from Sarah. You planned to cause an accident so you could get insurance money," Sarah interjected. "That's not true, it can't be," Keith denied vehemently. "And what can't be true?" "Sarah told me about your conversations with your mistress. I know about your plan to harm me and claim me insurance money," I said firmly. "Why would she say that?" Keith's protest sounded feeble, confirming my suspicions about both the affair and the accident plan. Keith seemed at a loss for words, inadvertently admitting the truth. His guilt was undeniable. "I never thought you could stoop so low. I'll raise Sarah properly. Why don't you go live happily with your mistress? I never want anything to do with someone like you again. Remember this. I'll never forgive this betrayal." I couldn't help but raise my voice in anger as I spoke to Keith. Without waiting for his response, I hung up the phone. "It seems I woke up my daughter with my raised voice," I said, noticing Sarah standing in the doorway. "Mommy, are you okay?" Sarah asked, her voice filled with concern. "Sorry, Sarah. Did I wake you up?" I asked, feeling guilty. "No, don't worry about it. What happened with Daddy?" Sarah's concern was evident in her voice. "It's okay now. You don't have to worry anymore," I reassured her. "Really? Are we safe? Can we always be together?" Sarah's eyes were filled with hope. I nodded and smiled at my daughter's bright eyes. Then I hugged Sarah tightly, comforting her. Soon after, I made the decision to divorce Keith. Through my lawyer, I successfully claimed a significant amount in child support. Although Keith's actions could have warranted police intervention, I didn't want to cause any more disruption for Sarah's sake. I completely cut ties with Keith and left the legal matters to my lawyer. I later heard that Keith was abandoned by both his parents and his mistress shortly afterward. Now he struggles to pay child support and settle property division. On the other hand, Sarah and I started a new life in a new house. Sarah adjusted well to her new nursery school and seemed to enjoy every day. While there may be challenges ahead for us, I believe that with Sarah by my side, we can overcome anything. She is my absolute partner, and together we can face whatever comes our way. My name is Luna, and I've been married to Lucas for 3 years. We used to live alone when we were dating. But after we got married, we moved in with Lucas's dad because his job was nearby. Even after we got married, I kept working. But I had to quit my job because Lucas's dad needed help. He started having memory problems about 1.5 years ago, and it got worse over time, so he needed someone to take care of him. At first, we thought about sending him to a nursing home, but Lucas really didn't want to. He asked me to take care of his dad at home, so I agreed. "Luna, please, let's try to take care of my dad here. I don't want him to go to a nursing home," Lucas begged. I understood how he felt, but it was a big responsibility for me, and I wasn't sure if his dad wanted me to take care of him that much. So I asked Lucas to help me as much as he could. I had never seen Lucas beg like that before, so I thought he would support me. But taking care of his dad turned out to be harder than I thought. His dad needed help with simple things like walking, using the bathroom, and taking a bath. He could still move around, but he often tripped and fell because he couldn't support himself. So Lucas and I decided to change our house to make it safer for his dad. Even though we were still paying off debts, we realized that his dad's safety was more important. At first, Lucas helped a lot with taking care of his dad. But as time went on, he started saying he was too busy with work to help. And after about a year of taking care of his dad, he stopped helping altogether. He even started going out on his days off instead of helping me. My father-in-law's health was declining, and he needed more help with basic things like using the bathroom and taking a bath. It became too much for me to handle on my own, so I talked to my husband about it. "You promised to help, didn't you? When was the last time you actually helped out?" "It's been months," I said to him. "He needs more care than I can give him alone." I'm feeling overwhelmed, I added. "I think we should seriously consider putting him in a nursing home instead of trying to take care of him at home," I suggested. We agreed to take care of him at home until the end, but at least we should consider getting professional caregivers involved. "Your dad needs more help than we can give him alone, and there are people who are trained to do this. I'm not strong enough to handle everything, especially tasks like bathing," I explained. But my husband didn't agree with me. He got upset and left before we could finish talking. Lately, I've noticed he's been stressed about money. However, I couldn't keep taking care of his dad on my own. So even without my husband's approval, I started arranging for home care services. His dad was assessed as needing a high level of care, so we arranged for a caregiver to come 5 times a week for about an hour each day. We also made a plan with our long-term care insurance, so I wasn't worried about the cost. But we hit a snag on the first day of home care services. "Hi, I'm Mira, your caregiver. I'm here to help you from now on," she said. "Nice to meet you, Mira. I'm looking forward to working with you," I replied. While the caregiver was talking to my father-in-law, she also taught me some nursing techniques. I found her guidance really helpful and felt confident about hiring her. But when my husband came home and saw her, he got really angry. "Luna, I never agreed to home care services. What's going on?" he yelled at me. "But I've been telling you that I can't do this all by myself anymore. I didn't do this without telling you." "I'm sorry, Miss Caregiver, but please go home for today," I tried to explain, but he didn't want to listen and sent the caregiver away. "Why did you arrange for home care without my permission? I'm the one who decides things around here. You're a terrible wife for not listening to me. You can handle caregiving alone. Don't waste money, especially since we still have to pay off the loan for the renovation. Why can't you see what I'm saying? I've told you many times that I can't do this all by myself, Lucas. You've stopped helping with caregiving, haven't you? That's not keeping your promise. And the renovation was necessary for safety. If your dad falls and gets hurt, taking care of him will be even harder. You might not get it because you haven't been doing any caregiving for over a year now. Why are you bringing this up all of a sudden? Besides, you're not working, so it's your job to take care of him, right? Who do you think is paying off the loan for that renovation?" No matter how much I tried to explain, my husband didn't understand. He really believes that I should do everything by myself. After that, I only had the caregiver come when my husband was at work. Talking to her about not just caregiving, but also the issues with my husband and getting advice was really helpful. After months of the same routine, one day my husband unexpectedly offered to take care of his dad himself. "You've been cooped up for over a year. Go treat yourself. I'll handle everything today," he said. I happily accepted his offer. I got a long overdue haircut and enjoyed some time at a coffee shop I used to frequent. But after about 4 hours, I started feeling anxious about leaving my inexperienced husband in charge, so I decided to head home early. When I got back, the house was unusually quiet. My father-in-law was peacefully asleep in his room. Assuming my husband had also worn himself out and fallen asleep, I went to check the bedroom, but he wasn't there. As I sat in the quiet house, I noticed an envelope placed on the dining table. When I opened the envelope, I found divorce papers already filled out along with a letter. The letter took me completely by surprise. "Even after we divorce, please continue taking care of my dad. I'm going on a trip for a week, so please file the divorce papers." As I read those words, it hit me. His sudden offer to take care of his dad was just a way to get me out of the house so he could prepare for his trip. And the fact that he had already prepared divorce papers was a shock. What's more, he expected me to continue caring for his dad even after we split up. I couldn't comprehend his thinking at all, so I called him immediately. When I read the letter, I found the divorce papers. What's going on? Who are you going on a trip with? I'm at the airport about to board. I'm busy, and frankly, I don't care anymore. It doesn't matter who I travel with. We're getting divorced. Just make sure those papers are filed by the time I get back from my trip. That's all. With those words, my husband abruptly ended the call and hung up. Just before the line went dead, I heard a woman's voice calling out his name on the other end. It became clear that he was with someone else, the person he was traveling with. We'd only been married again for 3 years, and now I was facing the possibility that he was having an affair. As I thought about how he might have been cheating on me while I was busy taking care of his dad, tears of regret filled my eyes. Luna, my father-in-law's voice called out to me as I left. He had been struggling to remember my name lately, but today he said it clearly. Worried about how well my husband had taken care of him while I was away, I hurried to see him. Father, are you feeling all right? Did everything go smoothly while I was out? I asked, concerned for his well-being. Luna, is the caregiver coming today? My father-in-law seemed surprisingly lucid and able to hold a conversation. No, she won't be here until tomorrow morning, I replied. Ah, I see. Could you bring me some paper and a pen? He requested. My father-in-law, who usually struggled with writing due to his condition, seemed different today, more refined. I remembered reading that writing could help with dementia symptoms, so I agreed and fetched him some paper and a pen. He began writing something, but I couldn't see what it was. After he finished, he placed the paper in an envelope and handed it to me. Give this to the caregiver when she comes tomorrow, he said before drifting back to sleep. Was this some sort of dementia exercise with Mila? Although I was curious about the letter's contents, I decided not to peek. Later, when my father-in-law woke up, he seemed to have forgotten everything, even my name. It left me wondering what had happened. That night, after he had gone to bed, I found myself pondering over the letter and divorce papers again. Reflecting on my husband's recent actions, I began to realize there might have been signs of something suspicious. I had been so focused on caregiving that I hadn't paid attention to him. If he was indeed cheating, part of me wanted to divorce him immediately and leave. But I couldn't abandon my father-in-law. Besides, without a job while taking care of him, I worried about supporting myself after a divorce. As morning arrived, I still hadn't made a decision. Mira came by, and I handed her the letter from my father-in-law. After reading it, she approached me looking troubled. And then, the caregiver. I'm here to support you, Luna. We've built a friendship, and moments like these are more common than you might think. I'm here for you, Mira reassured me with a kind smile. The letter is about me getting a divorce? I asked, feeling confused. Yes, it seems Mr. Henry noticed something wasn't right and asked me to step in. He wrote in the letter about his wishes regarding his estate. There's more to it, but we can discuss that later. Since your husband will be back soon, let's act quickly, Mira suggested. With that, Mira arranged for another caregiver to take over Mr. Henry's care and urged me to follow her. We ended up at a law firm. Mira, why are we here? I asked, puzzled. You'll understand once we're inside, Mira replied cryptically. Even though I was still confused, I followed Mira into the building. Thank you for coming today. I'd like to discuss a request I received from Mr. Henley regarding gifting property during one's lifetime. Specifically to you, Luna, the lawyer explained as we took our seats. The lawyer handed me a document and said, yes, it's notarized. Mr. Henley requested this document prepared by Mira. It states that Mr. Henley wishes to gift you $36,000 and his apartment during his lifetime. Stunned by this revelation, Mira started to explain. On the first day of my home visit, Mr. Henley mentioned this. He wanted to express his gratitude to you, Luna. However, as you weren't legally adopted by him, he couldn't pass on his assets to you through inheritance. So he decided to make this gift during his lifetime. I'm incredibly grateful. I need to thank my father-in-law right away, I said, feeling overwhelmed with emotion. Before we head back, there's one more place we need to stop by, Mira said, leading me out of the law firm. We made another quick stop before finally returning home. Once we were back, I expressed my heartfelt gratitude to my father-in-law, even though he didn't seem to fully understand. I kept telling him how thankful I was. Sadly, 3 days later, he passed away due to complications from his worsening dementia. I tried calling my husband, who was still traveling abroad, but he didn't pick up, perhaps assuming it was about the divorce. There's no other option, Mira said, guiding me through the necessary arrangements. As we gathered with relatives to make preparations, my husband's absence, being the biological son of my father-in-law, was a point of contention for some. 2 days later, my husband returned home, completely unaware of what had transpired. He was immediately bombarded with questions from all sides. Hey, help me out here. I swear I'm not cheating. I was just taking a vacation to unwind after being a caregiver every day, my husband protested. You can't lie twice. Even if you claim you were caregiving, there's no evidence to support that, I countered. I know for a fact that you went on that vacation with your mistress. Security cameras at the airport caught you two acting like lovers, I added firmly. With that revelation, my husband seemed to resign himself to the judgmental stares from the relatives. Several days later, once the tension had eased, I proceeded to file for divorce. I planned to move into the apartment my father-in-law had gifted me before his passing. As I made preparations for the move, my husband called. Luna, where are you? I just found out that I'm not the beneficiary of his life insurance, you are. All I was supposed to get was his life insurance. What are you going to do about this? He demanded. What did you tell my dad while you were taking care of him? You and that female caregiver must have conspired together. You two planned this, he accused angrily. It was your father's wish. Mira and I only followed his instructions, I explained calmly. Well, we're divorced now, and you and your mistress will be hearing from my lawyer soon. Make sure to pay up for the compensation, I added firmly. What do you mean we're divorced? Besides, since you got my dad's life insurance, you can consider it as your consolation money, right? So I don't owe you anything, my husband retorted arrogantly. It seemed he had forgotten that he had left me the divorce papers to file before he left for his trip. I was surprised by his callous attitude. The divorce papers were left by you with a letter asking me to submit them, weren't they? And the life insurance is a precious inheritance from your father, not something I received from you. So you should cover the compensation, I insisted firmly. My husband was speechless at my words, unable to respond. We realized we weren't making any progress and decided to end the call. He continued to call several times afterward, but following Mira's advice, I changed my phone number. I still see Mira occasionally. Even after my father-in-law passed away, she did more for both him and me than my own family, including my husband. I'm truly grateful to her. Eventually, it seemed that the truth reached my husband and his mistress, and I received a call from their lawyer. Lucas told me you were the one in charge, even though I didn't know the full story. I'm sincerely sorry for going on that trip while Lucas's father was struggling. I've already paid the compensation, and I don't plan to see Lucas anymore, she said. That's how things went down. I thought they might refuse to pay, so I was surprised when they didn't. I can't figure out why someone smart like her would fall for my husband. Anyway, he ended up having to pay her in bits. She was pretty well off, and my husband, trying to impress her, spent almost all his savings. I even heard he paid for a fancy trip out of his own pocket. Whether he blew through his savings or not doesn't really matter to me. I'm determined to make him pay back every cent, even if it takes a while. Luckily, we have a family home under my father-in-law's name, so finding a place to live won't be an issue. But with the payments for the loan we took out for elder care, along with the compensation we have to pay each month, it's going to be tough. Even if we deduct it from my husband's paycheck, he won't have much left over. And since our relatives all know about it, he can't exactly ask them for help. I hope he learns from his mistakes. I moved into an apartment my father-in-law gave me, which I get to keep for life. Life's comfortable now. I'm using the money I inherited from my father-in-law to study caregiving. Mira's helping me out too. I want to be a caregiver like her, someone who can really support families. I found out I have a serious sickness called leukemia, and the doctors say I need to stay in the hospital for a long time to get better. But when I told my family, they turned their backs on me, saying I deserved it. That's when it hit me. They don't really care about me. When I said I wanted to stop being part of their lives, they were happy about it, but they haven't realized yet how much they rely on me. My name is Sally, and I'm a stay-at-home mom in my 40s. My husband Michael and I have been married for almost 50 years. We have a daughter named Mia who just started middle school. Right now, I live with Michael, Mia, and my mother-in-law. Michael's mom raised him by herself after her divorce when he was young. Maybe she spoiled him too much because he's pretty selfish. Living with my mother-in-law made me see a side of my husband I hadn't noticed before we got married. When my husband found out I was going to have a baby, he was really happy. He couldn't believe it at first, but then he thanked me and said we would face any challenges together. I promised to do my best. But that joy didn't last long. When we found out we were having a girl during a checkup, my mother-in-law said something really hurtful to me. She said, "You never cook meat, do you?" I tried to explain that I cook a balanced diet, but she wouldn't listen. She even said that maybe the reason the baby was a girl was because I didn't eat meat. I was shocked and hurt. She kept saying we only needed boys and that having a granddaughter was the worst thing. She even called me useless. I tried to tell myself that as long as the baby was healthy, it shouldn't matter if it was a boy or a girl. But as time went on, my hopes were crushed. My husband started acting distant too, maybe because he was listening to my mother-in-law. He began treating me differently, and it hurt. "Michael, do you want to go shopping for baby stuff when you're off next?" "Do I have to? It's our baby, right?" "I want us to pick things out together." "Fine, but let's stick to the basics. Babies cost a lot, and we need to save." "Then buy what you want with your own money." I had minimal income during maternity leave. I have to save for our child's future and cover clinic bills and baby expenses. I had to go along with what Michael and my mother-in-law said and only get the necessary baby stuff. I worried they wouldn't love our daughter when she arrived. But after Mia was born, Michael and my mother-in-law adored her. They loved her even more than I expected, so I stopped worrying. I planned to focus on parenting for a while. But when Mia turned 2, Michael told me to go back to work. I thought it would be okay since my mother-in-law loved Mia too. But when I returned to work, both my mother-in-law and Michael showered even more love on Mia. Michael started spoiling her, just like my mother-in-law had spoiled him. I tried to teach Mia right from wrong with love, but it seemed she didn't see it that way. Before I knew it, Mia didn't like me and preferred to be with my husband and mother-in-law. "Hey Mia, it's time for kindergarten. Let's go together." "I don't want to go with Mommy. I want Grandma." "Mia, Mommy has to work too. Let's go to kindergarten together, okay?" "I hate Mommy. I love Daddy and Grandma." "Mia, please don't say that." "No, Mommy, just go away." Mia's words were really hurting my feelings. My mental health was suffering because of it. But my husband and mother-in-law didn't try to stop her. Instead, they looked at me like I deserved it. These tough times continued for about 10 years. Even in middle school, Mia hasn't changed. She avoids me and sticks to my husband and mother-in-law. And because of that, she's become uncontrollable. She screams and breaks things when she doesn't get her way. When I try to discipline her, she yells back at me. "Mia, can we talk? Did you take money from my wallet?" "Yeah." "So what? You're my mom. You can give me money, right?" "Taking without asking is wrong." "Please give it back." "No way. It's your fault for not getting me the Gucci wallet. I want it for my birthday. You're only in middle school. You don't need expensive things yet. I can get them when you're older." "I want it now. Why don't you understand, you old hack?" "Mia, don't talk like that. You're so annoying, Grandma. Mom is being mean to me." When I scold her, Mia turns to my mother-in-law for help. And my mother-in-law sides with her, blaming me too. "What's wrong, Mia? Did Mom upset you again?" "Listen, Grandma, she won't get me the Gucci wallet for my birthday, and she won't give me money either. Can you believe it? That's not fair. Your mom is being stingy. Grandma will get you the wallet next time, okay?" "Yay, thank you, Grandma." "You're welcome." "I love you, Grandma." Mia happily hugged my mother-in-law. Branded stuff is too much for her age, I thought. I disagreed with my mother-in-law. "Wait, Mom, Mia is still in middle school. Shouldn't we hold off on buying her expensive things?" I suggested. "But maybe not yet. You're so stingy." "I feel sorry for Mia having you as her mom," my mother-in-law snapped back. Every day, my mother-in-law spoiled Mia, buying her whatever she wanted. My husband did the same, filling our house with expensive stuff Mia barely used. Besides Mia's issues, there was another problem in our house. My mother-in-law's spending. I noticed she kept buying strange rings and bracelets. When I asked, she said a friend recommended them, but I suspected it was an MLM scheme. I wondered where she got the money since she was always buying things for Mia. Turns out she was borrowing from banks. When I confronted her, she brushed it off, saying it wasn't my concern. I grew to hate dealing with family problems, so I threw myself into work, often working late. My husband and mother-in-law criticized me, but I didn't care. I just didn't want to be home. Then one day, I collapsed at work. Tests revealed I had leukemia, likely brought on by stress. I needed long-term treatment, so I was hospitalized. I called my mother-in-law from the hospital. "I'm sorry to bother you, but I collapsed at work. I've been diagnosed with leukemia, and I need to stay in the hospital." "You have leukemia?" I hoped she'd be at least a little concerned about my illness. But that hope quickly faded. "It's a good thing you finally got seriously sick." I was shocked by my mother-in-law's response. "What? What are you saying?" I asked. "I've been annoyed with you every day. This serves you right," she said callously. "That's a horrible thing to say. Hold on, let me talk to Mia." I asked to speak to Mia and my mother-in-law handed her the phone. "What?" Mia's response was something I never expected. "Mom, are you sick?" she asked. "I'm sorry, Mia. I have to stay in the hospital for a while," I explained. Mia's reply crushed me even more. "I'm actually glad. It's better without you bothering us. You're always mean to me. That's why you got sick. You deserve it." "Are you serious right now?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. That's incredibly cruel. Everyone would be happier if I stayed sick. "I have to tell Dad about this," I said to Mia before she hung up the phone. In that moment, I felt like giving up on my family. I had reached my breaking point. I decided I would be the one to cut ties with them. Mia was my daughter, but I endured so much pain to bring her into this world. I had hoped to raise her to be a good person, but her behavior was a combination of her innate personality and how my husband and mother-in-law raised her. Some might find it unthinkable for a parent to walk away from their child, but despite our blood connection, I couldn't forgive their behavior any longer. I called my parents and asked them to bring clothes because neither my husband, mother-in-law, nor Mia had visited me during my hospital stay. Months later, after successful treatment and full recovery, instead of returning to the house I shared with my husband, I returned to my parents' house and sought advice from a lawyer about getting a divorce. My mother-in-law and Mia agreed right away. Michael was hesitant at first, concerned about public perception, but eventually agreed under pressure from my mother-in-law and Mia. Since he cooperated, I was able to get a divorce and claim compensation. About 7 years passed. I moved out of my parents' house and lived near my workplace, healthy and energetic. Then, out of nowhere, I got a call from Michael. His voice sounded exhausted, and he quickly jumped into his problem. "Hello, Sally, can you come back?" "What? Why all of a sudden? Things are tough for me right now." "What do you mean?" "My mother, she's in a huge amount of debt." Michael had just found out about my mother-in-law's debt and reached out to me for help. The debt, which had been ignored for so long, had grown to a significant sum, and my mother-in-law could no longer keep it hidden from Michael. To my ex-husband's anxious plea, I replied calmly, "You're only noticing now. She's been in debt since I was there, from way back. It seems she got caught up in an NM scheme. All the money she spent on spoiling Mia was borrowed from banks. I can't believe it. I had no clue. I tried to warn your mother several times, and I even tried talking to you about it. But every time, you just brushed it off. But not telling me about the debt is terrible, isn't it? If I had known earlier." "Don't say that now. After all, I was in the hospital, and none of you even visited me once, remember? I'm sorry for that. Just help me out this once." "What are you talking about?" I snapped, losing my patience. My emotions boiled over, and I found myself shouting at Michael. "Do you think you can just apologize and everything will be okay? When I was sick and needed help, you abandoned me. I regret ever marrying you." My anger subsided, replaced by a sense of release. I had finally let out everything I'd been holding in. "You should end up in debt like your mother and suffer for once. Please, calm down. I'll apologize." "Shut up. It's disgusting to start relying on your divorced ex-wife now." In the background, I could hear Mia's voice. Then she took over the phone, sounding sad. "Mom, Grandma's in trouble because of her debts. Please help us." "It's not my problem. Don't ask me for help." Mia didn't give up, despite my quiet refusal. "Dad's struggling to repay Grandma's debts. I might not be able to afford college tuition and might have to drop out. Is that okay?" "So, Mom, why are you acting like this is someone else's problem?" Your own daughter is in trouble. Daughter? Who? Mia's words made me chuckle. Just as she faced trouble, she emphasized she was my daughter, even though she'd never called herself that before. What's so funny? Michael asked. I was just thinking about how you suddenly claim to be my daughter when you're in trouble, after calling me names all this time. That's not fair. I'm your biological daughter who's in trouble, you know. But I don't have a daughter. What? No, Mom. I made that decision 7 years ago when I was hospitalized. I don't need a family like you anymore. We're divorced, so we're just strangers now, okay? Mom, please don't say that. Stop. Don't call me Mom because I'm not your mother. You should live happily with your father and grandmother who's in debt. Don't ever contact me again. You're just a burden in my life. With that, I ended the call and blocked their numbers to ensure they couldn't reach me again. After that, I heard that my ex-husband and mother-in-law were working tirelessly to repay their debts. They sold everything they owned, but it wasn't enough. They were struggling to make ends meet and even struggled to eat properly. My daughter couldn't afford her tuition and had to drop out of college. The expensive items she had were sold to pay off debts, leaving her with nothing. It seems even she is working to repay her grandmother's debts. It's heartbreaking to see my daughter facing such hardships compared to her peers. They really are foolish and helpless. They brought this upon themselves. As for me, I've purchased an apartment close to my workplace. I intend to invite my parents and live peacefully as a family of 3. From now on, I want to cherish each day with my true family and live happily. I thought you were a good daughter-in-law, but it seems I was wrong. Leave this house and never come back. You're nothing but a parasite. Pack your things and go. Ever since my husband passed away, my mother-in-law Sarah and sister-in-law Catherine have been saying mean things to me. Even though I've been taking care of Sarah, my husband was worried about her until the end. And yet Catherine says bad things about him, and I couldn't help but argue back. If you both feel that way, I understand. I'll leave. When I said that, Sarah and Catherine were happy, but a few months later, they were begging me. The bad luck I wished for them was worse than I thought. My name is Emily. I'm 32 years old and work as a buyer for famous brands. I met my husband Tom through a friend. Tom was kind and calm, just the husband I wanted, so I said yes when he proposed. Tom's parents were independent, so I got along well with them and didn't have any problems with my mother-in-law. Having a caring mother-in-law and practical father-in-law seemed perfect to me. Tom worried about his mom's financial future because she didn't think much about money. He thought it would be fine as long as his dad, who was responsible with money, was healthy. Tom also had an older sister, Catherine, who was divorced and lived alone. He figured she'd take care of their parents later on, but Tom didn't fully trust Catherine. I'm worried about giving our family money matters to Catherine. Why? There were problems before. I didn't think much about Catherine's past then, but later, Tom's worries turned out to be true. After I married Tom and had a few peaceful years, his dad got sicker and died. Since Sarah always depended on her husband, she was devastated. It's tough now, Sarah, but let's try to move on. I've always let my husband handle everything. I don't know how to do it alone. Tom was worried about his mom living alone, and I share his concern. As our son, he must have been really stressed about it. Then, one night, he came to me with an idea. Emily, what if my mom comes to live with us? It was unexpected, but I had a feeling he might suggest this someday. But what about Catherine? What about her? Shouldn't she, as the daughter, take care of Mom instead of us? I want to step up and take Dad's place, looking after Mom. She's not great with money, so I'll handle her finances too. Can't we ask Catherine to do that? No, that won't work. It was rare for Tom to firmly say no to my idea. I want to make sure Dad's money is well taken care of, so Mom won't struggle later on. Even though he felt bad about asking me to live together, Tom was determined to handle Dad's inheritance and savings. It's okay. I think we'll all be happy living together with your mom. I'm genuinely worried about her being alone too. Oh, Emily, thank you so much. And so we started our new life as a family of 3 in Sarah's house. Just like she promised, Sarah left everything for her husband to handle, from bank accounts to bills and credit cards. She didn't really understand any of it. Tom managed her money separately from ours and decided to give her a monthly allowance for her expenses. Whenever Sarah was tempted by dodgy salespeople or pressured to buy expensive stuff by friends, it was Tom's job to guide her. If he didn't, she might end up with a lot of debt because she was careless with money. By taking on the role of her husband, Tom made his mom happy. Seeing her happier also made Tom feel better. Sarah helped out with the household chores since I was working, and everything was going smoothly. But our peaceful life came to an abrupt halt. Tom collapsed at work. He had the same illness as his dad and might have pushed himself too hard during a busy time, ending up in the hospital. Sarah and I visited him almost every day, but Tom didn't seem to be getting better. Emily, I need to talk to you about what happens after I'm gone. Don't say that. Let's focus on getting you better so we can go back to living with your mom, just like before. I knew I might get sick like Dad, so I'm prepared. But there's one thing I need you to do for me regarding Mom. Trying to hold back tears, I listened closely to my husband's last request. A few weeks later, Tom passed away. Dealing with telling relatives, sorting things out with his job, and planning the funeral kept me busy and distracted from the grief. Once everything was settled, I remembered what Tom had asked of me. There was no time to mourn now. I had to step into Tom's shoes and take care of my mother-in-law. I'm sorry I've been occupied lately, Sarah. From now on, I'll handle the money matters instead of Tom. Don't worry, I'll make sure we have enough for our monthly expenses. Emily, are you still going to stay with me now that Tom is gone? Absolutely. Tom always told me to take care of you. Let's keep supporting each other. I understand. Sarah's eyes filled with tears as she spoke. I'm sorry for putting the burden of finances on you while you're already busy. Don't worry, keeping busy helps me cope, so it's actually helpful. But Catherine didn't seem happy about me living with her mom. When she found out I was not only staying but also handling the money, she burst into the house in anger. Why is Emily, an outsider, still here after Tom's gone? And why is she in charge of the money? Doesn't that seem strange to you? Before Tom passed away, he asked me to take care of Sarah and handle the finances. Are you just saying that conveniently? No, it's what Tom wanted. Is there some hidden reason behind this? And are you using Tom's name to your advantage? Catherine wasn't convinced, but she backed off for the time being. However, the next week she came back furious. Emily, what do you think you're doing? I saw everything. What are you talking about? You're having an affair, aren't you? An affair? I saw you going into a men's store and dining at a fancy restaurant with a man. Are you using Tom's money on your lover? That's not true. I haven't spent any money like that on someone else. Your excuses won't cut it. It hasn't been long since Tom passed away, and you're already moving on to someone new. Have you no shame? Mother, don't you agree? Influenced by Catherine's words, Sarah started to doubt me too. Emily, is it true? No, that's not what happened. I'm just following Tom's wishes, I tried to explain, but Catherine interrupted me. How dare you bring up Tom's name after cheating on him? How could you sink so low? I fell silent, feeling the cold stares from both Catherine and Sarah. Then Sarah spoke up. I used to think you were a good daughter-in-law, but I was wrong. I never want to see you again. Leave, Catherine chimed in triumphantly. That's right, parasites like you don't belong here. Determined not to let Tom's wishes go to waste, I endured it all. With that resolve, I remained silent. But Sarah and Catherine didn't stop there. They continued to hurl hurtful words at me. Poor Tom, picking someone like you. He was always so easily fooled, you know. Maybe he tricked you into thinking he'd handle the money, but actually used Mom's money for himself. To tarnish Tom's memory, especially when he cared so much about his mom, is unforgivable to me. I could handle them saying bad things about me, but I can't stand them insulting my late husband. I'm sorry, Tom, for not keeping our promise. I silently apologized to him as I turned to Sarah and Catherine. I understand. I'll leave like you both want. Hearing my words, the two exchanged looks and grinned. Finally seeing reason, huh? Leave the bank book here when you go. Sure. I handed over the bank book containing Sarah's living expenses and her husband's inheritance, then left the house. But 3 months later, I got a call from Sarah, whom I had distanced myself from. Emily, they're saying I can't pay my card bill. Why? What's happening? Maybe you spent too much and don't have enough left. You should check your balance using your bank book. Balance? How do I do that? It seems Sarah hadn't changed. She was still careless about money even after I left. As I thought this, Sarah started yelling at me angrily. This never happened when you were here. Suddenly after you left, the money's gone. You must have stolen it. I can't believe this. Come here right now. Furious, Sarah hung up the phone. Feeling heavy-hearted, I reluctantly went to her house. When I arrived, both Sarah and Catherine were waiting for me. Ignoring Sarah's anger, I accessed her online banking, checked the balance, and showed it to her. Here's the transaction history for this account. As you can see, while I was managing it, the balance never went negative. Do you understand why? Because I was saving money. It's hard to believe that you, who aren't good with money, would suddenly start saving. Actually, the balance stayed positive because I was depositing $1,500 every month for living expenses. Living expenses? I didn't know about that. Tom and I did it while he was alive. We decided to use our money to cover your expenses, so your savings wouldn't go down. Really? Tom did that? Yes, even after he passed away, I kept doing it with $1,500 from my own salary, but when you asked me to leave, I stopped. Then I continued, showing Sarah the transaction details. Let's see the transactions after I left. There are more than $1,500 being taken out, suggesting big expenses. I didn't change my spending habits. Maybe Catherine used it. With that, I shifted the conversation to Catherine. Looking at the details, there were card payments at fancy stores and restaurants. I can't picture Sarah spending money at those places. Catherine, do you have any clue? It wasn't me, but I can't think of anyone else who might have used it but you. Could it be you? Did you secretly use a family card or something? I've seen you at those shops and restaurants before. Even now, you're still using Mom's money. How low can you go? Can you just stop? I was there for work. The meals were for a meeting with a shop owner. Just because I say it's for work, you think you can't trust me. Fine, let's confirm it right now. I immediately called the shop owner. Thank you for always helping us out. Yes, it was last Friday, and the item was... Well, I was checking some details on the phone. Catherine just stared blankly. Thank you. Can you include that as well? Oh, I see. After ending the call and checking my email, I showed Catherine and Sarah the attached photo. It showed Catherine shopping at the store. What's this? Catherine looked shocked as she saw the photo. It seems the security camera caught you, Catherine, buying these luxury items. When I spoke to the shop owner, they confirmed it right away. I'm pretty sure the person in this photo is you. Don't you agree? Catherine was speechless. The shop owner also mentioned that items matching the ones you bought have been showing up at pawn shops lately. The dates and items match the ones when you used the card, right? Catherine's voice shook, and she seemed confused. Sarah, looking puzzled, asked Catherine, but why go through all this trouble? Buying something and then selling it to a pawn shop right away. Since Catherine didn't seem willing to answer, I spoke up. She probably needed cash quickly. If she took it straight from the bank account, it would have been noticed right away. So you tried to frame me by shopping at my workplace, making it look like I was the one spending money, didn't you? Catherine couldn't defend herself and stayed silent. Meanwhile, Sarah seemed to have more questions and kept pressing Catherine. Catherine, why do you need so much money? Well, I had debts to repay, Catherine confessed quietly. But I added more to her confession. You didn't tell Sarah about it, did you? Do you know why Catherine got divorced? It was because of her debts. Tom often mentioned how troubled he was because Catherine kept asking to borrow money. This has been going on since before Catherine got married. Even after she got married, Tom complained that Catherine's spending habits hadn't changed. You had debts. Sarah then remembered something. The money your father left you, Catherine. I gave you a bank book with the inheritance in it, didn't I? Don't tell me even that money. At Sarah's request, I checked the balance of the bank account where the inheritance was kept. Sarah, the bank account is completely empty. What? Completely empty. But a few days after I left the house, all the money was taken out of the account. No, this can't be. Sarah collapsed to her knees, yelling at Catherine in anger. What's the problem? I had to meet my repayment deadline. My father would have let me, his daughter, use the inheritance however I wanted. I can't believe Sarah is so stunned. It seems Tom was right all along. He always said letting Catherine handle money was risky. He probably saw this coming. Sarah gave Catherine a stern look. That money wasn't just for me, you know. You got your share of the inheritance, right? Who uses someone else's money? You're the one taking advantage of this house. Leave. We're done, Mom. Wait, didn't we agree that I would live here in Emily's place after she left? If I stay with someone like you, I'll end up in debt too. I expect you to return every cent of your father's inheritance. With those words, Sarah forcefully kicked Catherine out of the house. However, I'm unsure if it was the right outcome. Since then, we've lost all contact with Catherine, and Sarah never got back any of the misused inheritance. If she still had it, Sarah could have lived comfortably in her old age. But now, she lives in poverty and loneliness. On the other hand, even though Catherine used the inheritance to pay off her debts, her spending habits didn't change, and she's accumulated even more debt. Without money to repay her debts, she keeps moving to avoid her loan sharks. Only now do I truly feel the weight of Tom's passing. Though things turned out differently from Tom's last wish, I believe I haven't done anything wrong. Tom wanted me to prioritize my happiness above all else. Living with Sarah and Catherine would have gone against Tom's wishes for our well-being. I believe he would understand. From now on, with memories of Tom in my heart, I'll take a new step forward. On the day we were supposed to start our honeymoon, he surprised me by giving me papers that said he wanted a divorce. He said he was taking his whole family on the trip, and if I didn't like it, we could split up. Inside, I was furious. Okay, fine, I thought to myself. But remember, I'm still free. He looked shocked as I stood there feeling triumphant. My name is Emma. I'm 35 years old, and I work at a real estate company. I really enjoy my job and feel happy doing it. I'm lucky to have supportive colleagues, but in my personal life, I don't have any specific hobbies and I've never had a boyfriend. I felt a secret worry growing inside me. All my friends were getting married by the time they hit 30, one after the other. I was one of the few left who was still single. Plus, my younger colleagues were leaving our company one after another, and it hurt every time. Then, I met Brian through a friend's introduction. He was 2 years younger than me and had a smile that made me feel warm and protective. He didn't talk much but always listened to what I had to say when we needed to make decisions. He made me feel like my thoughts mattered. Since I had no experience with relationships before, I quickly fell for Brian's personality. Our relationship progressed smoothly. When I brought up the topic of marriage, he simply said, "Okay, let's do it." Marriage involves making lots of decisions: the wedding, the honeymoon, finding a new home to live in together. It's a huge event in a person's life, so I wanted us to decide things together. But no matter what decision we faced, Ryan always let me take the lead. He never shared his own thoughts. He just agreed with whatever I said. Brian's personality began to seem unreliable to me, and I started feeling unsatisfied with him. Another thing bothering me was my relationship with my mother-in-law. She was completely different from Brian, not easygoing at all. She never listened to my opinions and always imposed her own ideas on me. "Emma, when you get married, you'll quit your job and focus on taking care of the house, right? You're not getting any younger, you know. If you don't hurry, you might not be able to have kids. Brian is working hard, so as a woman, you should focus on the family. It's a wife's duty to support her husband." These were the first things she said to me when I went to greet her. The husband works outside and the wife takes care of the home. She clung to old-fashioned ideas like this. The truth is, I earn more money than Brian does. He doesn't seem to mind, and he's even told his parents about it, but his mother doesn't seem to approve. A woman who earns more than a man isn't charming. Maybe you can't do any household chores, can you? A wife should cook, do laundry, clean, and take care of her husband's health. Can you do that? She said, looking down on me. You're right, it's definitely different when it's your mother-in-law saying those things. While it's not something to boast about, I can handle all the household chores because I've been living alone for a long time, and I don't plan on quitting my job after getting married. I want to prioritize myself just as much as Brian. But when my mother-in-law criticized me, Brian didn't stand up for me. Instead, he just nodded along with her. That made me feel uneasy about relying on him for the rest of my life. But then again, Brian is younger than me. Maybe he'll become more dependable as he gets older. If this marriage doesn't work out, I might never get married at all. My mind is torn between anxiety and desires, stuck in an endless conflict. But time doesn't wait, even when I'm troubled. There are so many decisions to make for the wedding. where to go for the honeymoon, arranging time off from work, and more. The to-do list keeps growing, and it's making me feel even more uneasy. I was juggling busy days preparing for both work and marriage. One day, I talked to Brian about our plans. Considering our work schedules, we can only take a long vacation at this time. So should we have our honeymoon during this period? I asked. Yeah, that sounds good to me, Brian replied. Both of us had similar quiet periods at work, so this was our only chance for a long vacation. But there was a problem with the wedding. The venue I've always dreamed of is so popular that it's booked for over a year in advance. In that case, what do you think about having the honeymoon before the wedding? I checked, and some people do that. If we have the wedding first, it will be another 2 years before we can go on the trip. If you're okay with it, Emma, then I'm fine with it too, Brian said. I thought Brian wouldn't object, but he agreed so easily. It seemed like he was accepting all my opinions without any resistance. While I did want him to express his own thoughts a bit more, I figured it was better than facing opposition. So whenever I got the chance, I kept moving forward with the preparations for our honeymoon and wedding. In the end, we settled on going to Europe for our honeymoon. I debated until the last minute between Hawaii and Europe. Hawaii was close by, and I figured we could visit there another time. So I chose to explore Italy and France, enjoying the beautiful streets and delicious food. I also wanted to check out the stylish accessories and maybe buy some special tableware since it marked the start of our new life together. After considering various schedules and destinations, I finished all the paperwork about a month before the trip. By then, I was completely excited. It was going to be my first overseas adventure, and I couldn't help but feel thrilled. My mind was consumed with thoughts about Europe, from buying travel essentials to planning our activities there. Because of this excitement, any lingering dissatisfaction I had with Brian had disappeared completely. Just 1 week before our honeymoon, Brian suddenly brought up a conversation. I was puzzled by Brian's unusual request. He rarely asked me for anything, so I was curious about what it could be. Could it be related to our trip? Did he find a place he wanted to visit? I was filled with anticipation as I asked him, "What's wrong?" Brian innocently made his request, saying, "I want to go to see Taylor when we're in Paris. Mom really wants to go there." I was taken aback. "Your mother-in-law?" Wait, what do you mean? I couldn't keep up with this sudden turn of events, but Brian seemed to think it was obvious. "Well, since everyone else is going, we'll all be together even during the trip, right?" "What do you mean by everyone? It's our honeymoon, so it's obvious that it's just you and me going." "But my mom thinks it's normal for the whole family to go," Brian explained. "First of all, I only made reservations for 2 people. You and me, Brian. The deadline for booking was 7 days ago. Today is the last day to register. Whether we go together or not, I only booked for 2 people, so it was impossible for the whole family to join. If you ask the travel agency, they might be able to sort something out," Brian suggested. I was stunned by Brian's statement when suddenly, the intercom in the house rang. On the screen, I saw my in-laws. Without any regard for my surprise, they entered the house with a load of bags. Ignoring my objections, my mother-in-law's eyes sparkled as she declared, "I thought I'd leave the luggage here since we're leaving soon. I'm so excited." Brian chimed in, "Just leave the luggage here," and began leading them into the room without asking for my consent. "Wait a minute." I tried to stop him urgently, but my mother-in-law shot me a sharp look. "What's the matter, Emma? I hope you're not suddenly saying you don't want to go together now." "I never agreed to go together in the first place," I retorted, but my mother-in-law paid no attention. "You heard it, she just said no, didn't you?" "But Brian always thought we would go together with you, right?" she asked, trying to flatter Brian. Brian simply replied, "Yeah," affirming her statement. Seizing on his agreement, my mother-in-law began to dismiss me. "It's normal for the husband's parents to go on the honeymoon. Don't you have common sense? I hope you won't ruin the trip with any unpleasant experiences since it's a special honeymoon. We want to make good memories, right? I'll make sure to teach you some common sense during this week before we leave. It's supposed to be a special honeymoon after all." I felt like everything was falling apart. My blood was boiling with frustration. "Mother-in-law, this is a honeymoon, you know. Normally, it's just supposed to be the husband and wife," I insisted desperately. If I listened to my mother-in-law's demands now, it would set a bad precedent for the future. I wanted to avoid that at all costs. However, my mother-in-law stubbornly refused to back down. Not only that, but she began to dismiss my concerns altogether. The husband's parents going on the honeymoon together is just common sense. I can't believe you don't want to be with us. I thought we were becoming a family, but it seems our ideas of common sense are different. You don't seem to like me, and nothing seems to match. How sad, she said, lowering her eyebrows in a fake manner. Her words, how sad, seemed to have a hidden smirk behind them. I was convinced she was deliberately trying to trap me. That's how sure I was. Even Brian, without questioning, started blaming me based on my mother-in-law's words. Emma, what's wrong with you? They're my parents. It's okay for us to go on the honeymoon together, right? It's not possible. We've already booked reservations for 2 people. Plus, I've never heard of families joining a honeymoon trip, I declared. Brian shouted angrily, as if looking for a fight. I never realized you disliked my parents so much, Emma. That's enough, just leave for today, Brian said, looking at me as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. As he spoke, a wicked smile spread across my mother-in-law's face. Why does he always take his mother's side without even considering his spouse's opinion, especially at a time like this? I wished he would support my views. Before I could react to his words, I found myself pushed out to the entrance. Just before the door closed, I caught a glimpse of my mother-in-law's smug expression. Left outside, I felt powerless. Why am I being portrayed as the bad guy? Why does everything, even this special trip, have to be ruined? Frustration and sadness consumed me, and tears began to flow. A few hours later, I received a message from Brian. I want you to see if it's still possible for them to join the tour. If not, we'll cancel this trip and find a tour where all 4 of us can go. Please think rationally. If you reconsider, we can sort it out properly. I don't believe I'm in the wrong. It seems like there's no reason for you to apologize or respond. Brian hasn't contacted you since his last message, and it's likely he's upset too. Time passed, and the day of your honeymoon departure finally arrived. Despite feeling unable to enjoy it in your current state, you had spent a month preparing for this trip, so you couldn't refuse. As you were getting ready to leave, the intercom rang, and it was Brian coming to pick you up. You hadn't seen each other since the incident, so you didn't know how to act around him. His arrival indicated that he still intended to go on the trip, but strangely, he didn't have any luggage with him. Instead, he handed you divorce papers. After hurting my parents, you still planned to go on this trip, didn't you? He accused. I'm taking my whole family on this honeymoon. If you don't like it, let's get a divorce. My mom said it would be better that way, he added, thrusting the papers in front of you. In that moment, you finally saw his true colors. You had thought he would listen to you and prioritize your feelings, that he was a kind person. But it turned out he didn't have his own opinions, and he put his family before you. That's who Brian truly is. As I came to that realization, my feelings for him began to cool down. Even if I were to marry him, I couldn't see myself overcoming the challenges that lay ahead and becoming a family with his mother-in-law. It just seemed impossible. Determined, I pointed at the divorce papers in front of me and said, sure, but remember, I'm still single, you know. Huh? Brian exclaimed, clearly surprised by my words. Single? What do you mean? Weren't you listening? We talked about going on the honeymoon but delaying the registration until the day of the ceremony. I made sure to get your permission, Brian. You didn't forget, did you? The marriage certificate is still in the drawer, and you even said, if you are fine with it, Emma, then I'm fine too. That's right, divorce or not, we're not even married yet. There's no problem with going on the honeymoon with my maiden name. Maybe you remembered my words. Brian's expression suddenly changed. But then he turned red and raised his voice in frustration. Are you out of your mind to give up on marriage just because of a honeymoon? Get a grip. I responded, matching Brian's intensity with my own strong voice. This is the result of me being rational. I've been so desperate to get married that I couldn't see reality clearly. I don't think I can be happy marrying someone who doesn't listen to their future spouse's opinions and doesn't support them. I'd rather stay single for life. Thanks for making me realize that. Haste makes waste. I keenly felt that this saying was true. Hey Emma, let's calm down and start over from scratch, okay? He looked like he was about to cry. His pleading voice trembled. But I won't be fooled anymore. I will break free from this guy. Without realizing it, I found myself shouting loudly at Brian. If you're so desperate for a family trip, why don't you go with your family of 3? But in return, you'll have to plan everything from the tour reservations to the itinerary all by yourself. After always relying on others, it's about time you experience the difficulty yourself. If you think you can handle it, go ahead, you indecisive man. I pulled out the marriage certificate from the drawer and tore it to shreds in front of Brian. His mouth hung open in shock at the sudden turn of events. Overwhelmed by my determination, Brian was completely taken aback. Do you understand how serious I am now? I refuse to have a future that's dark. It's over between us. Why don't you go back to your beloved mommy and cry to her, you mama's boy? Leaving a stunned Brian behind, I slammed the front door shut. Given his demeanor, he might actually go cry to his mother. I could easily imagine that happening. Afterward, I contacted the tour company to cancel our reservations. Since it was a same-day cancellation, we were charged 100% of the fee. I billed Brian for the entire amount since he was the one who ruined our honeymoon. It felt like the right thing to do. Later, Brian blamed me for the failed marriage and spread rumors about it to those around us. However, it seemed that no one sympathized with him among our relatives and coworkers. Instead, he started to be seen as an unconventional mama's boy due to his past actions and was disliked by many. When I told my parents about the divorce, they were initially surprised but quickly accepted it. Marriage isn't the only source of happiness. As long as you're happy, Emma, that's what matters. I couldn't be more grateful for my mother's words. As a side note, since then, my hobby has become traveling. I felt it would be a waste to let long vacations go to waste, so I embarked on my first solo trip. Going overseas alone was a bit daunting, but I enjoyed a relaxing time in historic cities I had always wanted to visit. Wow, being alone is actually quite enjoyable. Thanks to the historical adventure trip, I've started to fully enjoy solo traveling. Whenever I have time off on my next break, I'm planning to embark on my next overseas trip. I've begun a life where I won't let myself be controlled by marriage alone.